Chapter 399. Looking at this scene, Yang Chun also had some foundation in his heart, knowing how to cultivate this puppy-like spirit beast. At the same time of ecstasy in his heart, he also began to look forward to it. When Xiao Tian grew up, what kind of strong performance would it have? Next, Yang Chun gave He Lian a little pointers, and at the same time, Yang Chun began to fuse the three kinds of fourth fire flames. The fusion of multiple flames was more difficult, but this was not an insurmountable peak for Yang Chun. It just took time and patience. He Lian carefully looked after her master while holding a lot of jade slips and began to study them. Zhu Qintao's requirements for her were not high. He just wanted her to be familiar with most of the known medicinal materials, know how to identify, how to deal with them, and how effective they were. This was not the kind of entry-level learning in Yeshio Villa, but a real systematic study of the basic knowledge of alchemy. In addition to this, it was to practice the way of controlling the fire. At this point, Zhu Qintao was very lazy and directly let He Lian ask Yang Chun for advice. According to the method of Yang Chen's guidance, He Lian began to try to simulate everything with the flame, but she was also very focused. Zhu Qintao was the same this time. Refining this level of medicinal pill let Zhu Qintao broaden his horizons, and his thinking was also greatly opened up. Although he was currently using the most basic refining method, Zhu Qintao still comprehended many extraordinary things from this most ordinary method. Time passed in such a calm and busy manner. The three people who were immersed in their own busyness did not seem to feel the passage of time. Every once in a while, He Lian would take a break from her own practice to help her master divide the required amount of medicinal ingredients and throw them into the alchemy furnace. She would also slowly learn from her master's refining techniques. The fire attribute emanating from Yang Chen's body was getting stronger and stronger. When He Lian served Yang Chun before, she only knew that Yang Chun himself was very magical, but the attributes of his body were balanced with the five elements, which was unpredictable. Now he was completely a cultivator of the fire attribute, and the strength of the flame was unprecedented, and there was even a feeling of being out of control. This was not an illusion, but He Lian's real feeling. Not to mention He Lian, even Zhu Qintao would feel the same way. The fusion of the three flames brought not only the power of the flames, but the most direct impact was that the fire attribute's spiritual power would be very violent. The fusion of flames was a very dangerous thing for others. The degree of danger was like forcefully mixing several types of explosives together and using a sledgehammer to continuously pound them. If one was not careful, they would explode. It was normal for others to feel that the flames on Yang Chen's body were a little out of control. After a period of time, the raging flames seemed to be under control, and the heat on Yang Chen's body also subsided a lot. He Lian, who had been worried all this while, finally felt at ease. She was no longer as worried as before. After letting out a long breath, Yang Chun finally stopped cultivating and woke up. The fusion of the three flames took Yang Chun a lot of time to coordinate and suppress, and he finally succeeded. This fusion brought great benefits to Yang Chun. The fourth fire spiritual power, as expected, directly rose to the level of the seventh level of the foundation stage, which was equivalent to stepping into the level of the late stage of the foundation stage. Because of the improvement of the fourth fire spiritual power, it also led to the indirect supplement of the third fire spiritual power. The third fire spiritual power also broke through the fourth level of the foundation stage and entered the level of the fifth level of the foundation stage. The other spiritual powers also improved and finally broke through the threshold of the third level of the foundation stage. All of them entered the fourth level of the foundation stage and collectively entered the middle stage of the foundation stage. Now looking at Yang Chun, he was completely a pure fire tribute cultivator. Compared with other spiritual powers, the fourth fire spiritual power, which was 3 small levels higher, suppressed all the other spiritual powers of Yang Chun, outshining all the other spiritual powers. How long has it been? He Lian, who was next to him, came to greet him, and Yang Chun asked casually. 5 years, senior apprentice brother. He Lian replied respectfully. Although the title had been changed to Senior Apprentice Brother, her attitude was still so respectful. 5 years. Yang Chun was also a little surprised. He knew that the fusion of the third flame would be very time-consuming, but he did not expect it to take such a long time. He didn't know what the situation outside was now, whether his master had already reached the water attribute foundation stage, and how the matter of Shi Shanshan was handled by the head of the palace. However, these thoughts only flashed in Yang Chen's mind. Speaking of it, in He Lian's eyes, Yang Chun was a lazy person. She had never seen him meditating day and night. Every day, he just did a fixed cycle of cultivation and then read some miscellaneous books or do some surprising things. This time, Yang Chun meditated for 5 years at a time, which was simply unprecedented. However, He Lian had already reached the foundation stage, and, of course, she could vaguely guess Yang Chen's current cultivation base. In just a short period of 20 years, Yang Chun had already entered the realm of the late foundation stage. This was no longer a leap forward. It could even be said that he was riding a rocket. For a long time, Yang Chen's cultivation base had been hovering in the early stage of the foundation stage. It could be said that in the 10 years of alchemy, Yang Chun had directly promoted from the early stage of the foundation stage to the late stage of the foundation stage, which was very surprising. He Lian and Yang Chun had been together for a long time, and she also knew Yang Chen's temperament. So she was very puzzled and asked. Yang Chun did not blame He Lian, but explained to her that he had absorbed several kinds of flames, so the spiritual power had improved, and there were no other reasons. Moreover, this method of greatly improving the cultivation base was not advocated to be used easily, and after using it, it would take a long time to consolidate the cultivation base, otherwise the gains would not make up for the losses. This was a fact. Even if it was Yang Chun, after explaining this to He Lian, he still carefully restored the previous way of doing a circle every day to slowly consolidate the current realm. At the same time, he was also waiting for the end of Zhu Qintao's early refining. Because there was Shao Tian in the medicine garden, so far it could only hold the lowest level flying sword in Lichen Medicine Garden. Yang Chen was not in a hurry. On the contrary, in addition to reading the books sent by the beast-taming sect and guiding He Lian on weekdays, he began to use several kinds of secret arts to sacrificial refine his own flying sword. He believed that when Shao Tian became stronger and stronger, he would eventually like the advanced flying sword. Looking at the posture of Shao Tian, holding a flying sword and licking, Yang Chen also decided that after the completion of this alchemy, he would go to find the drop of blood essence of the howling celestial dog and let Shao Tian make up for it. In the very leisurely waiting of Yang Chun, Zhu Chuntao finally completed the initial refining of the Black Tiger Soul nourishing pill and began to transfer the medicinal liquid that was about to become a pill to Yang Chen's profound spirit furnace again. Chapter 400. The Black Tiger Yuan Nourishing Pill was more advanced and more difficult than the Black Tiger Calm Pill, and Yang Chen's attitude was much more serious than last time. In the eyes of Zhu Chuntao, it was already comparable to the drive of Yang Chun when he was refining the Black Tiger Yuan Nourishing Pill in the 2nd grade. This time, Yang Chun did not use the dazzling fire control method of the last time alchemy, but honestly, like Zhu Chuntao, he used the most basic fire control technique to carry out. But the more this was the case, the more Zhu Chuntao looked at it. Since the last time he refined the Black Tiger Calm Pill, Yang Chen's unconventional alchemy method had already made him have a vague feeling, as if he had vaguely seen the door to the Yuanying stage. Now watching Yang Chun use the most basic method, Zhu Qintao's heart seemed to be stirred by something, and he was suddenly enlightened. No matter what method was used, some things were unchanged, and the most basic things were the most solid wherever they were placed. He used to think that he couldn't form his Yuanying stage because his technique was not skillful enough and not advanced enough. Now he discovered that this was not the case at all. For a while, Zhu Qintao was suddenly enlightened and stared at Yang Chen's refining technique for a whole year. Suddenly, he laughed and sighed, "I understand." Then he sat on the ground, his 5 hearts facing the sky. He put on a cultivation posture and went into meditation. He Lian's face was puzzled. She didn't know what her master understood, but she still did her part honestly and did not dare to slack off. Fortunately, there was enough spirit power here, and there was no need to supplement it with spirit stones. It was not a problem for the masters below the Deshang stage to meditate for a long time. Helian was not worried about her master's safety. Zhu Qintao's meditation also lasted for several years. In the 3.5 years after he entered the meditative state, Yangchen had completed the refining process of the black tiger yuan nourishing pill and began to collect the pill. The spiritual power in the pill furnace was turbulent, and Zhu Qintao, who was meditating, suddenly woke up. When he opened his eyes, he saw Yangchen collecting the pill. He hurriedly took a step forward and looked at it carefully. The technique of the Laojun pill scripture was really overkill to use in the mortal world. At the same time, it also gave Yangchen incomparable confidence. He had been very careful during the long refining process, so he didn't have to worry about failure at the last step. The medicinal liquid in the profound spirit furnace began to rotate wildly with the gestures of Yangchen and slowly change from liquid to solid. First, it condensed into a messy ball. Then it slowly rotated and became round. The rough parts on the surface disappeared bit by bit, as if there was an invisible hand controlling the pill and carefully sculpting it. Finally, in Yangchen's final clenching of his fist, a round medicinal pill was instantly formed. There was a vivid and lifelike black tiger pill mark on the pill, as if it had been carved by an exquisite craftsman. It faced the sky and roared. Although there was no sound, it made people feel as if they were listening to the roar of a tiger. The moment the pill was formed, Zhu Qintao's body emitted a dazzling glow. Then, Yangchen noticed that something was wrong with his surroundings. No, even if it was Yangchen, he couldn't help but be surprised. Zhu Qintao's posture at the moment was clearly a precursor to forming his nascent soul. After this stage, the thunder tribulation would come immediately. As long as he survived the thunder tribulation, he would be a proper Yuanying stage master. Helian, leave immediately. Yangchen ordered Helian, and then shouted into the air, Senior Gue, release the restriction. As he shouted, his hand quickly put the pill that had been formed into a small jade bottle. This was the result of almost 10 years of hard work. It couldn't be destroyed by Zhu Qintao's thunder tribulation. The profound spirit furnace was put away one by one. Zhu Qintao had already begun to form his nascent soul, and his body was overflowing with spiritual power. Yangchen couldn't stay here anymore and quickly rushed out. Everyone in the Fierce Sun courtyard had already noticed that things were not good and ran out to check. Although the scope of influence of forming his nascent soul would not be very large, it was enough to cover the entire Fierce Sun courtyard. Everyone retreat as far as possible. Don't affect Hall Master Zhu's nascent soul. Everyone was in a mess. Yangchen yelled and let everyone understand what was going on. Soon, everyone withdrew from the Fierce Sun courtyard under the command of Yangchen. To be able to exchange for a Yuanying stage master, not to mention a Fierce Sun courtyard, even if it was 10 Fierce Sun courtyards, Yangchen would be willing. Anyway, it was just some houses, and it would not damage the underground spiritual vein. Yangchen was not afraid of someone making trouble. With the body of the old tree demon, few people could make trouble here. He just used his spiritual awareness to explore the changes in Zhu Qintao's spiritual power and secretly estimated Zhu Qintao's state at the moment. After a while, the head of the palace and several elders who were not in retreat all rushed here. When they saw Yangchen, they just asked if the medicinal pill was refined. After Yangchen nodded, the attention of the palace master was focused on Zhu Qintao. No matter how much foreign aid there was, it was not as solid as having a Yuanying stage master. The sky suddenly darkened, and the sky began to be covered with black clouds, getting thicker and thicker, and from time to time, there was a flash of thunder. Everyone looked at this scene, but they were all nervous. This was the tribulation cloud of the thunder tribulation, indicating that Zhu Qintao had successfully formed his nascent soul and was only waiting for the thunder tribulation to come. The rotating tribulation cloud changed into a spiral shape in the air, and then a thunder light hit straight on the roof of Yangchen's small courtyard. In just a moment, the house of Yang Chun turned into fragments, revealing the figure of Zhu Chuntao sitting inside. Zhu Chuntao, who had been baptized by the thunderlight, sat there motionless, but there was a burst of fire on his body, as if he was a burning man. Lightning bolts struck down continuously. 2 bolts, 3 bolts, all the way until the 8th bolt. Zhu Chuntao sat there without the slightest intention of moving. However, before the last bolt of lightning descended, he stood up. The flames on his body suddenly rose up as if a pot of boiling oil had been poured on it. Under the dark shadows, it appeared abnormally bright. Boom! The last thickest thunderlight went straight into Zhu Chuntao's forehead, flashed on Zhu Chuntao for a long time, and then slowly dissipated. The tribulation cloud in the sky also began to fade with the completion of the last thunder tribulation, and eventually disappeared without a trace. Palace Master. Elders. Zhu Chuntao didn't care that his whole body was dark, and he bowed to the several high-level members of the Pure Yang Palace standing around him. Congratulations, Hall Master Zhu. Whether it was the head of the palace, the elders, or other people who saw this scene, at this moment, all said this sentence in unison. The head of the palace almost couldn't close his mouth. His own sect had another Yuanying stage master, and he was also an alchemist master. Was there anything that made him, the head of the palace, happier than this? Chapter 4:01. The people of the Ardent Sun courtyard were truly lucky. They were able to calmly cultivate and had the opportunity to witness the thunder tribulation of the Gold Core realm and Nascent Soul realm. For the disciples who had yet to reach the Nascent Soul realm, this was simply a lively educational lesson. Was there a better opportunity to observe? As for the Fierce Sun courtyard that had been destroyed, it was not a problem. When the Fierce Sun courtyard was built, it was Yang Chun, Gao Yu, and several senior brothers who took their own slaves to do it themselves. Now the head of the palace waved his hand, and the sect allocated resources to rebuild the Fierce Sun courtyard, striving to be more spectacular and comfortable than the last time. The elders were happy, the head of the palace was happy, and the other disciples were also happy. The head of the palace was overjoyed. In order to celebrate the success of Zhu Qintao's Yuanying stage, every disciple, whether it was the inner sect or the outer sect, was given an extra month's salary. When the news came, the Chunyang Palace was in jubilation. Everyone understood the benefits of adding a Yuanying stage master to the sect, especially the Yuanying stage alchemist master. This also meant that in the future, Chunyang Palace would have more and more advanced medicinal pills for the disciples to choose from. Perhaps among the few who were unhappy, Song Xing was the most depressed one. The same peak Jidon stage, the same bottleneck, but Zhu Chunhao followed Yang Chun and quietly entered the Yuanying stage. The hateful thing was that Yang Chun clearly knew how he could cross the bottleneck, but he did not tell him. The huge contrast between the two. How could Song Xing's teeth not itch? Similarly unhappy, there was Liang Xiaoming, the master of the Bright Moon Palace. The same Jidon stage master, the same hall master. Even before Zhu Qintao's retreat for alchemy, his cultivation was not as good as Liang Xiaoming, but Zhu Qintao became a Yuanying stage master so easily. Even if he retreated for 10 years, he was still lingering in the peak Jidon stage. How could Liang Xiaoming, who had always boasted of his good cultivation, endure this? But in any case, Liang Xiaoming and Song Xing could only bite their teeth and swallow these resentments into their stomachs. On the surface, they were still happy to celebrate Zhu Qintao's Yuanying stage success. The senior members of Chunyang Palace, the head of the palace, and several elders were well aware of Zhu Qintao's previous situation. They knew that he had no hope of forming his nascent soul, so he studied alchemy. Now that she had followed Yang Chun to refine medicinal pills for more than 10 years, she actually became a Yuanying stage master in one fell swoop, which was simply an unexpected surprise. Counting it, Yang Chun, a disciple of the foundation stage. In these years, it seems that he's brought a master of the Deshang stage, 2 Yuanying stage eccentrics, and a Yuanying stage alchemist to Chunyang Palace. Not to mention, under his influence, Grandmaster Wang Yang's cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. It seemed as if everyone around Yang Chun was improving rapidly. Counting Yang Chen's attack, it was far more than that. Taking the Black Tiger Essence nourishing pill that had just been successfully refined, once the Black Tiger predecessor of the beast-taming sect took it and recovered from his injury, Chunyang Palace would have a second-rate sect as an ally for nothing. If Yang Chan was willing to nod, maybe when he could hold the beauty fairy sure back, Chunyang Palace could also get the support of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Strictly speaking, Yang Chun, this disciple, had contributed more than some of the people who were the hallmasters. They were not afraid of not knowing the goods, but they were afraid of comparing goods so that the difference could be seen. While Chunyang Palace was celebrating, the senior members of the beast-taming sect were also in high spirits. They originally thought that it would take 10 years for the alchemy to be successful, but they did not expect that after the fusion of the three flames, Yang Chen's cultivation base had greatly increased, and the time for alchemy was also shortened by a year and a half. In just a short period of 8.5 years, they had already been informed that the Black Tiger Essence nourishing pill had been refined. Fan Shan, who received the news, directly rushed to Chunyang Palace with the fastest speed and met Yang Chun. After confirming the good news, he immediately couldn't wait to take Yang Chun to Lianyang Mountain again. He was so anxious that the etiquette seemed to be a little inadequate. However, Fan Shan could not care about it for the time being. Facing the head of the palace, he apologized. Zhu Chuntao was rejoicing, waiting for the sect master to personally come to congratulate him. Naturally, the sect master would also personally visit Chunyang Palace to discuss further cooperation matters. In this regard, the head of the palace was not displeased at all. Instead, he urged Yang Chun to hurry on the road. This time, there were no twists and turns on the road. Yang Chun and Fan Shan rushed to Lianyang Mountain all the way. As soon as they arrived at Lianyang Mountain, Fan Shan did not say anything and pulled Yang Chun straight to the back of the mountain, the residence of the Black Tiger predecessor. The Black Tiger predecessor had changed to another place, not the simple cave, but on the basis of the cave, it was directly transformed into a palace in the mountainside. Although it couldn't be said to be luxurious, it was many times better than the bare cave he had been in before. It seemed that after the injury stabilized, the Black Tiger predecessor was no longer so decadent and began to consider some things that had never been considered before. The changes in this cave could be seen. The sect master and several elders of the beast-taming sect had been waiting for a long time. When they saw Yang Chun, they thanked him without saying anything. Regardless of whether this medicinal pill was successful or not, Yang Chun spent 14 years to refine pills for the Black Tiger predecessor, which was worthy of gratitude. As soon as the Black Tiger Essence nourishing pill was taken out, the Black Tiger predecessor felt a taste of flesh and blood. He knew very well that there was its monster core powder in it, so there would be such a feeling. Looking at this round medicinal pill with a beautiful Black Tiger elixir mark on it, the Black Tiger predecessor, for a while, did not mean to take it immediately. His mind was in turmoil, and the painful memories of the hundreds of years of helplessly enduring the attack of the injury and the dissipation of the primordial spirit came back to his heart. After a moment of emotion, the Black Tiger predecessor swallowed the medicinal pill into his abdomen under the gaze of several senior members of the beast-taming sect. This time, it was not like the last time when there was no reaction at the beginning. As soon as the medicinal pill entered the abdomen, everyone felt a refreshing spiritual power spread quickly. The Black Tiger predecessor let out a satisfied snort, as if he was enjoying a wonderful process. The Black Tiger predecessor was indeed enjoying it now. The refreshing spiritual power covered his whole body in a moment. The internal organs that were injured because of the Yin fire tribulation hundreds of years ago were surrounded by a cool feeling. It was as if the Yin fire ashes that had not been extinguished were being extinguished by the spiritual power, and at the same time, it was nourishing his injured parts and slowly recovering. In just a while, the Black Tiger felt that his injuries were almost half healed, and it was recovering steadily. The kind of comfort from the inside out made it involuntarily lie down on the ground and let out a satisfied groan. Such a situation, in the eyes of several senior members of the beast-taming sect, was simply a surprise and joy. The Black Tiger predecessor recovered, and the beast-taming sect would no longer be as depressed as before. Chapter 402. This time, Senior Black Tiger took the medicine for 3 days and 3 nights. The people around didn't even need to ask how Senior Black Tiger felt. They could tell what was happening in his body just by looking at his rising pressure. The dissipated primordial spirit was being replenished little by little, which also meant that Yang Chen's medicinal pill was completely effective. On the 4th day, Senior Black Tiger finally stood up. His body, which was dozens of feet long, began to shrink slowly under a comfortable stretch. After a while, it shrank by half. The people present were all experts. The shrinking of Senior Black Tiger's body also meant that his cultivation base had improved. The beast-taming sect's higher-ups were even more overjoyed. Yang Chen's medicinal pill not only cured Senior Black Tiger's injury, but it also improved his cultivation base. It was really effective. Good. I thought I could only close my eyes and wait for death, but now I have such cultivation base improvement. Even Black Tiger himself was grateful to Yang Chen. Fellow Taoist Yang, thank you. If there is anything difficult in the future, just let me know. I will go through water and tread on fire without hesitation. He used to call Yang Chen boy, but now he changed it to fellow Taoist Yang. This is Senior's own accumulation. It has nothing to do with Junior. Yang Chen would not push the credit of the treatment, but Yang Chen refused to accept the improvement of cultivation base. If Senior wants to thank someone, thank Senior himself. Yang Chen's words made everyone understand the key to the improvement of Senior Black Tiger's cultivation base. They were all experts, so there was nothing difficult to understand. In the hundreds of years that Senior Black Tiger was injured, he must have tried his best to suppress the injury at the beginning. Over the years, if it were not because of the injury, his cultivation base would never stop or even decline. Now that his injury was healed, the hard work of Senior Black Tiger in the past was not in vain, and it was naturally reflected. Moreover, his previous state of mind was like dead ashes, but now it was thriving. His confidence was different, and his realm had also improved. However, Senior's internal injury has just healed, so it is better not to use spiritual power easily. Saving people to the end, Yang Chen did not forget to remind everyone hundreds of years of accumulation need to be slowly filled up. If it's convenient, it's better to consolidate it for more than 10 years and completely recover. They were all cultivators, so they all knew whether Yang Chen's words were true or not. Yang Chen's consideration for Senior Black Tiger made the people of the beast-taming school even more grateful, and they thanked him profusely. Everyone in the beast-taming sect was happy, but they couldn't help but rejoice. With a mere 20,000 books and an auction qualification, and a notorious Hellion Yun, they actually got a Deshang stage Black Tiger predecessor. This business was really good. On that day, the beast-taming school's sect master directly announced the good news. As soon as the news came out, the disciples and friends of the beast-taming school suddenly knew that Senior Black Tiger had recovered from his internal injuries and regained the strength of a great ascension stage master. As the sect's strength increased, as a disciple, he would be able to straighten his back when he went out to travel. Yang Chen was once again hooked up with a master of the great ascension stage because of alchemy and became famous. In the word of mouth of the cultivators, Yang Chen was now another senior alchemist master after Deng Ya and Zhu Peng. Although he was the one with the lowest cultivation base, no one dared to underestimate him. Not to mention anything else, just talking about his alchemy several times. Elder Wu Xiong's heaven-seizing pill, Elder Hua Wanting's blood phantom vine, Senior Black Tiger's Black Tiger Calm pill, and Black Tiger Essence raising pill, all 3 times were related to a master of the Great Ascension stage. Even Deng Ya was not so powerful, especially when the news came out of Chunyang Palace that Zhu Chuntao, the master of the medicinal hall, had an epiphany in the process of alchemy and successfully formed his nascent soul, becoming another Yuanying stage master of Chunyang Palace. It was even more amazing. Zhu Qintao's reputation was known to many people, and they also knew how his original qualifications were. To say that Zhu Qiantao reached the nascent soul stage by himself, 8 out of 10 people who knew about it did not believe it. But he and Yang Chun have been in seclusion for 14 years, and he actually broke through. Obviously, it had an inseparable relationship with Yang Chun, an alchemist in the foundation stage, one after another for the masters of the Great Ascension stage, and also helped the master of the medicinal hall to improve his realm. What kind of powerful alchemist was this? At this point, no one said that Yang Chun was related to the Xiang family's heaven-seizing pill. Not to mention anything else. Could the heaven-seizing pill cure the injury of Senior Black Tiger? Or could it solve the entanglement of the Blood Phantom Vine? Everyone would rather believe that Yang Chun found inspiration in a variety of miscellaneous books or discovered some kind of pill scripture or something. The Xiang family and Helian Yin were executed by Chunyang Palace, and no one said anything about it. Even if it was mentioned, they would laugh at them for being overconfident and greedy. They wanted to covet Yang Chen's own pill recipe, but they provoked Chunyang Palace. They deserved to die. It was not known how many alchemists have begun to learn from Yang Chun, reading a lot of books when they have nothing to do, try to increase their own knowledge, and broaden their own thinking. Unfortunately, they did not have a strong memory like Yang Chun and could not remember too much. Of course, more people began to have a good relationship with Chunyang Palace intentionally or unintentionally. One day, someone would need to ask Yang Chun, the alchemist. It was absolutely necessary to have a good relationship with Chunyang Palace. The disciples of Chunyang Palace who were outside to gain experience also clearly found that it seemed that outsiders were polite to the disciples of Chunyang Palace. Thinking of a series of major events in the sect, everyone was surprised and happy. For Yang Chun, they were also grateful to him from the bottom of their heart. When he returned to Chunyang Palace again, Yang Chun was accompanied by the sect master of the beast-taming sect and a predecessor Black Tiger. They followed Yang Chun to Chunyang Palace. One was to express their gratitude to Chunyang Palace, and the other was to discuss further cooperation with Chunyang Palace. When the guests arrived, the master of the palace and the elders were busy receiving them. After Yang Chun retired, he returned directly to the Liang courtyard. This time, he had not seen his master for more than 10 years. The last time Zhu Chantao crossed his tribulation, he only took a glance. His master Gao Yu was immersed in observing Zhu Chintao's tribulation, so Yang Chun did not disturb her. Now Yang Chun could not wait to talk with his master for 3 days and 3 nights without rest. The Liang courtyard, which was damaged by Zhu Chintao's tribulation, had been repaired during the time when Yang Chun was away, and it was more imposing than before. The sect made efforts to directly build a magnificent building, and even the layout had changed. Yang Chun had to find Shanghai Feng first to know the location of his master. However, before seeing his master, Shanghai Feng told Yang Chun a piece of news. The senior knife scar, who Gao Yu met last time, came to Chunyang Palace half a month ago and wanted to see Yang Chun. Yang Chun was in the beast-taming sect at the time, so the sect arranged for Knife Scar to live in the guest room of the Liang courtyard. If Yang Chun was free, he should go to see Knife Scar first. Chapter 403. Yang Chun did not follow the advice of Shangwan Feng and still went to Gao Yu's small courtyard first. When he saw his master, he was happy again. Gao Yu has successfully built the foundation of the water attribute. It was only a short period of 9 years. This made Gao Yu puzzled. Even with the help of the elixir, the spiritual awareness of the Jedon stage also has a certain effect, but in a short period of 9 years, from the Qi refining stage to the foundation stage, this speed is also speechless. Even Gong Sunling, the recognized genius in the sect, the disciple with the innate earth attribute close to the full value, from the Qi refining stage to the foundation stage, it took a full 10 years. But Gao Yu knows her own things. Obviously, she has a fire attribute spiritual root. Why does the cultivation of the water attribute cultivation method rise so fast? Why is this? Gao Yu, who is already at the second level of the foundation stage, asked Yang Chun, very puzzled. Since Yang Chun spared no effort to let her practice the water attribute cultivation method from the beginning, he must know the reason. For the time being, this is just a guess. When I can be completely sure, I will explain it to you, Master. Yang Chun certainly won't say it right away. Now is not the time. Do you want your master to be your experimental subject? Gao Yu looked a little angry, so that Yang Chun looked almost fascinated. When Gao Yu found his eyes dull, she pushed him and let Yang Chun wake up from his obsession. Is Master beautiful? Gao Yu suddenly asked Yang Chun. After asking, Gao Yu also felt that something was wrong, and her face was red. Beautiful, Yang Chun replied without thinking. Compared to the cold and unparalleled fairy sure. Seeing Yang Chen's casual answer, Gao Yu suddenly didn't know what was crazy and then asked another question. Master is beautiful. Yang Chen still replied without thinking. In his mind, there was no place for sure Shan Shan, so he almost didn't need to think about this answer. Listening to Yang Chen's answer, Gao Yu's heart was sweet, but also a little shy. Why did he ask such a strange question? It was not something a master should ask. Master, Knife Scar is here. Let's meet him together. Yang Chun said calmly, as if he didn't feel the strangeness of his master. However, his heart was already in turmoil. He just didn't know how to express his excitement. Gao Yu had no intention of rejecting Yang Chen's suggestion. The two of them arrived at the guest room of the Fiery Sun courtyard and saw Knife Scar, whom they had not seen for nearly 20 years. Although they had been separated for a long time, Daoba had not changed much. The appearance of a nascent soul stage expert would not change too much. However, the current Knife Scar was completely different from his previous state of not knowing what to do after getting his revenge. He seemed to have found a new direction and was full of vitality. Senior. The other party was a master of yuanying stage, and he was considered senior. Yang Chun and Gao Yu also called him a senior. I haven't seen you for a long time. How are you, senior? Thank you, thank you. After Knife Scar no longer had hatred, he looked very kind, but the scar on his face destroyed all this peace. When he smiled, it looked a bit hideous. This is the appearance pill that I promised to the senior. Senior, kindly accept it. Yang Chun and Knife Scar did not do those hypocritical social engagements. They directly took out the porcelain bottle with the appearance pill that had been refined and handed it over. Knife Scar was not polite at all. He directly took it and pinched it in his hand. He suddenly smiled and said, Yang Chun, you were so famous recently. On the way back from the monster plane, Knife Scar heard about Yang Chun all the way, and each of them seemed to be related to a master of the Deshang stage. Knife Scar could not help but be surprised. But when he thought that Yang Chun could make the old tree demon listen to him, it seemed that these things were not so difficult to understand. It's just a small thing, not worth mentioning. Yang Chun waved his hand very casually, and then asked, Senior, how was the harvest of this trip? Without exchanging the appearance pill, Knife Scar did not go to the 100,000 mountains this time, but went to the monster plane that he was not familiar with. Fortunately, he himself was a powerful yuanying stage master, so he did not suffer much on the monster plane. The demon beast plane was indeed rich in natural resources. Otherwise, it wouldn't have bred so many demon beasts. Knife Scar took a large number of spirit stones and some product from the Dao Sex, which were indeed exchanged for a lot of good things on the monster plane. Originally, his Chinquan bag was already full, and he could return in less than 3 years. However, Dao Ba was lucky enough to find a good place on the demonic beast plane. After collecting some good things, he found that almost 20 years had passed in the blink of an eye, so he hurried back. What good things are worth the senior spending 20 years to collect? Yang Chen's eyes lit up, and he asked curiously. Gao Yu next to him was also curious, waiting for Knife Scar's answer. A small bottle of 7th metal true essence. Knife Scar replied slowly, completely unaware of how much shock his answer had brought to Yang Chun. 7th metal true essence? Yang Chun almost exclaimed out loud, and his voice could not suppress the surprise. He asked almost ecstatically, is it useful for Senior to use this 7th metal true essence? It's of no use to me. Knife Scar shook his head with a smile on his face. However, for the cultivators of the metal attribute, this is a good thing that can only be encountered. Hey, why am I telling you this? You must know better than me. When he said this, Knife Scar suddenly remembered Yang Chen's reputation for reading a lot of books, and couldn't help but shake his head. If the senior is not using it for himself, can you exchange it for this younger generation junior? Yang Chan suppressed his excitement and asked in a negotiating tone, What does the senior need? Just say it. Exchange it for you? Knife Scar was stunned. He thought that Yang Chun was a fire attribute cultivator, but he didn't think that Yang Chun would need this seventh metal true essence. He asked strangely, "What do you need it for?" This younger generation junior needs a cultivation method. Yang Chun did not hide it and said directly, "I just need seventh metal true essence. I have no use for it. It's okay to give it to you." Knife Scar did not have much resistance to this. Anyway, this was used to exchange spirit stones or magic weapons. It didn't matter who he gave it to, but some words still had to be made clear. What are you going to exchange for it? What does the senior want? Spirit stones? Magic weapon? Medicinal pill? Cultivation method? Yang Chun spread his hand and gestured to Knife Scar to offer his own price. This seventh metal true essence was very important to Yang Chun. It was a necessary thing to cultivate the seventh metal true secret art. It was also a necessary thing for Yang Chun to perfect the Great Yin and Yang five-element secret art. Yang Chun was determined to get it. Seeing that Yang Chun was so determined to let Knife Scar offer a price, Gao Yu was also anxious, but she couldn't help much. Suddenly she thought of something and said, "If the senior gives this to Yang Chun, the three conditions that the senior promised can all be waived." Chapter 404. Because of the injury to Gao Yu, Dao Ba promised to do 3 things for Gao Yu, which was agreed before. Now that Gao Yu put this forward, it was really for Yang Chun to fight for it. In that case, then this thing can be regarded as a thing to be done for Taoist Gao. Dao Ba was not the kind of person who was greedy for small advantages. He directly took out a jade bottle sealed by talismans and threw it over. In this case, I only owe Taoist Gao 2 things. This is not appropriate. Although Yang Chun reached out and caught the jade bottle, he shook his head and refused. This seventh metal true essence is extremely precious. Master's promise cannot be exchanged for this thing. Then let's add your appearance pill. Dao Ba was calm, and it seemed that he was very happy to be able to end a thing. You just promised to change my appearance pill, but you didn't say anything. Just let's exchange. Not appropriate. Not appropriate. Yang Chun still shook his head. It was too easy for him to change the appearance pill. It could not be compared with the value of the seventh metal true essence. Moreover, he wanted to sincerely win over Dao Ba. He would never push Dao Ba thousands of miles away for a little advantage. Then I will reserve a medicinal pill for you. Dao Ba was very open-minded. After his revenge, he had almost no desire for anything. At this moment, he did not argue with Yang Chun. This should be okay, right? It was easy to say, but Dao Ba's heart was still very appreciative of Yang Chun's upright temperament. At least with this person, he didn't have to worry about what he cheated or what he took advantage of. What medicinal pill? Yang Chun nodded. Adding this, it was not something unacceptable. I can't think of it for the time being. Dao Ba smiled and shook his head. Maybe I will need a unique medicinal pill in the future. I will think about it later. You just have to remember that you owe me a medicinal pill. Deal. Yang Chun breathed a sigh of relief and sent the seventh metal true essence back into the merit ring. This seventh metal true essence, he had a peace of mind, and there was no uneasiness. Gao Yu next to her was also very happy. Although she had one less condition, she got what Yang Chun needed. Although she didn't know what Yang Chun wanted these for, Gao Yu was still very happy. How did the senior collect this seventh metal true essence? Although he accepted the things from the scar, Yang Chun was still curious about how the scar collected it. He wasn't a demonic beast, and he didn't have any metal elemental cultivation techniques. But it's not easy. When Knife Scar heard Yang Chun ask about this matter, he also felt proud of himself. He couldn't help but start to talk nonstop. Dao Ba was also a fire-attributed cultivator, and the Nanmingli fire had already become his exclusive flame. After discovering the seventh metal true essence, Knife Scar tried to use Nanmingli fire to force the seventh metal true essence into one place. It took almost a lot of effort to collect the bottle of seventh metal true essence. It was a simple combination of the 5 elements, but it was used by Knife Scar to perfection. In the end, Knife Scar was still proud of himself. Although it took me 20 years, my cultivation base has increased because of collecting these 7th metal true essence. It's worth it. It seemed that Knife Scar not only adjusted his mentality, but his cultivation base had also increased a lot of self-confidence. No wonder when Yang Chun saw Knife Scar, he felt a sense of vitality. It turned out to be because of this. Congratulations to the senior. Yang Chun also smiled and congratulated Knife Scar. With this beginning, Knife Scar was also a person who could make friends in the future, and they could carry out more cooperation. This time on the Plane of the Beasts, I got a lot of good things. Are you interested in buying them? Yang Chun told Knife Scar about earning spirit stones on both sides at the beginning, and Knife Scar naturally would not forget. If his things were sold by individual customers, the recovery of spirit stones would be very slow, and the price would be maliciously lowered by those big sections. Naturally, it was best to find Yang Chun. If the senior is willing, we can have in-depth cooperation. Yang Chun directly put forward the intention of in-depth cooperation. At the same time, he talked about how he and Shangwan Feng wanted to do business outside of the Chunyang Palace sect. There was a stable sales channel, and it also meant that there was a stable supply channel on the Dao sect side. How could Knife Scar not be happy? Not only that, but with Yang Chen's business, with Knife Scar's recent reputation of Yang Chun, Chunyang Palace would never ignore it. At least they would provide protection. Then there would be a strong backer, and the profit would be higher than that of individual customers. The more the two sides talked, the more congenial they became, and Gao Yu next to them was stunned. She did not expect that Yang Chun was so proficient in the production of the beasts. When talking with Knife Scar, he actually knew everything and did not fall behind. Knife Scar was even more surprised. Yang Chen's familiarity with the production of the beasts was even more familiar than him, who had been there in person. Even more comprehensive than him, he already had a systematic concept of what price to buy and what price to sell here. Compared with him, who had a temporary idea, he knew that something could earn spirit stones, but did not know how much spirit stones could be earned. He was more professional. The more they talked, the more excited Yang Chun directly called Shangwan Feng. Shangwan Feng was far more interested in doing business than in cultivation. But the strange thing was that the bigger his business was, the more refined his cultivation seemed to be. Yang Chun had been practicing alchemy for more than 10 years, and Shangwan Feng had also entered the middle stage of foundation establishment and was about to break through to the late stage of foundation establishment. Yang Chun was also amazed. It seemed that Shangwan Feng was the kind of natural management talent who could not neglect both cultivation and management. As for how to do this business, Shangwan Feng seemed to have more ideas. In a few seconds, he gave Knife Scar, Yang Chun, and Gao Yu a huge business world, which made people stunned. It seems that this business is not a loss, Knife Scar said with emotion. There was no need to look at the timing and effect. Just listening to Shangwan Feng's words made him have a feeling of admiration. Even if he was a Yuanying stage master, he could not help but admire Shangwan Feng, a businessman in the foundation establishment stage. Knife Scar was very refreshing. He immediately opened the Qianquan bag and began to count the good things he got from the monster plane. Next to him, Shangwan Feng directly began to evaluate, and the sound of a golden abacus was very pleasant to hear. The four people were immersed in the process of calculating wealth, and a few days passed unconsciously. Dao Ba's harvest this time was quite plentiful. His Qianquan bag was filled to the brim. It took him several days just to clean it up. When he calculated it, Shangwan Feng could not help but be envious. Just this trip, Dao Ba could have a harvest of hundreds of thousands of low-grade spirit stones. Shangwan Feng was not ambiguous and directly took out dozens of kilograms of high-grade spirit stones to pay the bill. In Chunyang Palace, it was estimated that apart from Yang Chun, he had the most spirit stones here. Chapter 405. Both sides were happy, especially Knife Scar. With the appearance pill, he could return to the 100,000 mountains without fear of being recognized. It must be known that the place that Knife Scar was most familiar with was the 100,000 mountains. Compared with the Plain of the Beasts, Knife Scar knew more about what was in the 100,000 mountains. Yang Chun was the happiest. He didn't expect to get the 7th metal true essence by chance. It was definitely an unexpected surprise. With the seventh metal true essence, Yang Chen's seventh metal spirit power would definitely become the most original seventh metal true essence. The great Yin and Yang five elements secret art had taken another step forward. Senior, sometimes it's not very convenient for you to be alone, right? At the end of everyone's discussion, Yang Chun suddenly mentioned it. What do you mean? Knife Scar asked with some doubts. He instinctively felt that Yang Chun seemed to want to arrange people around him. I mean, the senior can find a few suitable juniors or slowly find a few helpers from now on. Yang Chun didn't mean that. He just reminded him sometimes a little more people is not only convenient, but also more helpers. In 100,000 mountains and the plain of the beasts, others don't dare to make a move. This was true. At least in the 100,000 mountains, a lone ranger was the easiest to be attacked. No matter how high the cultivation base was, once there were a few people, generally speaking, everyone would be more cautious. Knife Scar was going to ask for money, not to fight with people. With a small group, it would be much safer and less troublesome. If there's a chance, I will find a few helpers. Knife Scar thought for a while and nodded. Yang Chen's words had already been pointed out. As for what Knife Scar did, it was Knife Scar's own business. The things that Shangwan Feng was in charge of were very popular inside the Chunyang Palace. Now, it was almost time for him to face the outside. The Palace Master and the Beast-Taming Sect Master had already talked about cooperation and were in a very good mood. Yang Chun came over to talk about this trivial matter. The head of the palace agreed without thinking. Go to the shopkeeper of the Chinchio Pavilion and let him arrange a store for you. You don't have to worry about it. Shangwan Feng excitedly accepted the order, but the head of the palace left Yang Chen behind. However, at the beginning, the palace master did not say anything, but hesitated. Finally, he gritted his teeth and asked Yang Chen, Yang Chen, you know where Song Xing's bottleneck is. Can you guide him? This was what the master of the palace asked after hesitating for a while. Originally, he also knew the attitude of Yang Chen. However, the good news that Zhu Chuntao had become a Yuanying stage master stimulated the master of the palace, making him feel that if there could be another Yuanying stage master, Chunyang Palace would be better. Therefore, he hesitated for a long time before asking. Yang Chen didn't answer at all. He just shook his head silently. The master of the palace asked this because he had his own considerations, but for Yang Chen, that was not a reason. Since Song Xing was targeting Yang Chen, he also wanted Yang Chen to help him in turn. How could there be such a good thing? Moreover, even if he wanted to speak, it should be Song Xing himself. What was the matter with the master of the palace and Yang Chen saying it? AI. The master of the palace sighed slightly. He also knew that it would be such a result, but if he didn't try it, he would not be reconciled. A Yuanying stage master. Unfortunately, why was Song Xing so stupid? When he was the acting master, he still listened to Liang Xiaoming's bewitchment and went to find trouble with Yang Chen. In the end, the way he broke through the bottleneck was in the hands of Yang Chen. It was really luck and fate. Palace Master. Yang Chen suddenly opened his mouth and called, which gave the master of the palace a glimmer of hope. He looked up at Yang Chen, waiting for him to say something that would take the overall situation into account. A Yuanying stage master can't change too much of the strength of my sect. Yang Chen's first sentence once again extinguished the little extravagant hope of the master of the palace. But the next words made the master of the palace shocked. If the palace master is not too busy recently, you can consider attacking the Deshang stage. Attacking the Deshang stage? The master of the palace has not had this idea for a long time. He was now in the middle Yuanying stage. Not to mention the Deshang stage. Even the peak Yuanying stage was an extravagant hope. Yang Chen suddenly said that he wanted him to attack the Deshang stage. How could it be possible? If the palace master is willing, find a suitable Dao companion with a metal attribute for double cultivation. This disciple knows a metal attribute double cultivation method that can make the strength of the palace master greatly improve. Since Yang Chen returned from the Immortal Fall Abyss, the master of the palace has been taking care of Yang Chen. Yang Chen was certainly willing to return the favor and let the master of the palace go further. Double cultivation? The master of the palace was stunned. He had not considered this problem. First, There was no good double cultivation method in the Chunyang Palace. Second, it was really difficult to find a suitable Tao companion. The identity of the master of the palace was special. How could he find a disciple of other sects for double cultivation? However, Yang Qin's reminder made the master of the palace see some hope, especially the performance of Yang Qin over the years. As long as it was the people around him, he would take care of them, and everyone's cultivation base was refined. So many people had examples. It could be seen that Yang Qin was not talking big, since he said that he could let the master of the palace attack the Deshang stage. Maybe it was really possible. Yang Qin also wanted to create such a feeling for the people around him. As long as they had a good relationship with Yang Qin, there would be many benefits, and against him, they would suffer heavy losses, and maybe their lives would be in danger. In this way, it was easy for some people in the sect to make the right choice. Are you sure? The master of the palace bowed his head and thought for a while, then raised his head and asked, 60% sure. Yang Qin would not say this thing, but gave a more likely answer. In fact, 60% of the certainty was enough to make the master of the palace tempted, and 30% of the certainty was enough to make people fight for it. The atmosphere at the scene was very strange. If someone saw it, the first impression must be that Yang Qin was asking the master of the palace. But who could think that the fact was the opposite? One was a possible master of the Yuanying stage. The other was to become a Deshang stage master himself. With two choices in front of him, how could the master of the palace not know how to choose? It was just that when he thought that Yang Qin would rather spend a lot of effort to create a master of the Deshang stage, and was not willing to say a word to Song Xing who had offended him, the master of the palace really did not know how to describe Yang Qin. Speaking of the Tao companion, the master of the palace suddenly raised another topic. He looked at Yang Qin and said, when you were in seclusion, I personally went to the Green Jade Immortal Island. Yang Qin's eyes couldn't help but cast over. This matter was related to him, so he couldn't avoid it. He could only ask, I don't know what the result was. Chapter 406. In my opinion, you have a beautiful flower with a high cultivation base and outstanding qualifications. My Chunyang Palace can get some help from the Green Jade Immortal Island. This is the best of both worlds. The head of the palace looked at Yang Qin and said with a smile, Palace Master, you won't agree, right? Yang Qin was anxious. Regardless of any etiquette, he eagerly asked, Are you so afraid of that girl, Shan Shan? The head of the palace looked funny and couldn't help but ask, I'm not afraid. Yang Qin shook his head and became serious. In his mind, the decisive face of his master's previous life flashed again. He said very formally, It's just that I can't accept it. Your business, you solve it yourself. The head of the palace seemed to sigh slightly, and then said, I have already talked to the island master of the Green Jade Immortal Island about this matter. You're still young. Maybe if you have more contact, you will naturally understand. As for whether it is successful or not, you have to solve it yourself. Thank you, Palace Master. Yang Qin also heard the kind of sigh from the tone of the head of the palace. It was not easy for the Palace Master to fight for this way for him. Yang Qin immediately thanked him. You don't have to be polite with me. The master of the palace waved his hand and once again said, I have promised the Green Jade Immortal Island. After you finish your retreat, no matter what you do, you will be with Fairy Sure. You will experience together for a few years. Maybe you will get to know each other better. Yang Qin was stunned on the spot. What was this? Why did he still need to accompany Shan Shan to experience? To improve understanding? Don't be in a daze. The head of the palace ordered, This is the reason why you are here. What are you going to do next? He just asked this sentence, and regardless of Yang Qin's answer, he directly said, No matter what you do, first go to the Green Jade Immortal Island to visit Fairy Sure, and then go together. The order of the head of the palace was the result of the negotiation between the palace master and the island master of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Yang Qin knew that this matter could not be changed, and he could only cry and slowly retreat. Let a flower like Fairy Sure accompany you to experience. Do you still have an opinion? Get lost. The head of the palace looked at Yang Qin's expression and knew what he was thinking. He scolded him and drove him out. Yang Qin couldn't help but complain in his heart. What was this? Originally, he planned to take his master to find a drop of the blood essence of the howling celestial dog for Xiao Tian, but now he had to take Shi Shanshan with him. What should he do? He complained in his heart, but he could only return to his master's room and said the instructions of the head of the palace. He frowned and let Gao Yu find a way. Since it is the order of the head of the palace, then I will go with her. What's the harm? Gao Yu looked at Yang Chen's sorrow and couldn't help but smile. You have no confidence in yourself? Or, at this point, Gao Yu suddenly bit her lip and said, or do you not have confidence in Master? Master. Yang Chen raised his head and looked at Gao Yu in surprise. He saw the blush on Gao Yu's face and the limpid eyes that were looking at him. He suddenly felt that his protection for such a long time had finally come to fruition. In the ecstasy, Yang Chen suddenly recovered his vigorous fighting spirit. He laughed and said in high spirits, Master's lesson is right. This disciple understands. This disciple will go to the Green Jade Immortal Island and invite Fairy Shi to go together. Anyway, the head of the palace just said to let them solve it themselves. It was not a big deal to make things clear with Fairy Shi. The only concern of Yang Chen before was that he was afraid of his master's misunderstanding. Now that even his master had confidence in himself, what was he afraid of? During the time when Yang Chen was in seclusion, Gong Sunling had thoroughly mastered the maze and also caught up with the time when Zhu Qintao formed his nascent soul. She observed the whole process of crossing the tribulation at a close distance. He didn't know what she had realized, and she was in seclusion. Yang Chen wanted to visit, but he couldn't. He could only let Gong Sunling's servants tell Gong Sunling that he was going out to travel and would be back in 2 or 3 years at the latest. The business was handed over to Shang Wanfeng. After Yang Chen went to Zhu Qintao to congratulate him, he left the Liang courtyard, summoned the shuttle, and went straight to the Green Jade Immortal Island. There was still a distance from the Green Jade Immortal Island. Yang Chen controlled the shuttle to fall into the sea, turned it into a big ship, and rushed to the gate of the Green Jade Immortal Island. In any case, the etiquette that should be maintained must be maintained. Even if there were any small disagreements in the future, others could not find fault from these details. Yang Chen was thinking about this. Stopping the ship and docking, he reported his name in accordance with the rules of visiting the mountain, and then asked to see Fairy Shi. The name of Yang Chen. The Green Jade Immortal Island has already heard of it, and the high-level officials of the Green Jade Immortal Island have already released the news that Yang Chen was Shi Shanshan's Dao companion. This time he reported his name. The treatment he enjoyed was different. The disciple guarding the gate of the island mountain was very enthusiastic to welcome Yang Chen to the guest room and sent exquisite tea and snacks. He did not forget to tell him, fellow Taoist Yang, this time I came to let senior sister Shi take you to the island to have a look. Next time you come, you can directly go in to find senior sister Shi. Shi Shanshan's talent was outstanding, and she had entered the Jidan stage early. Her junior sisters of the same generation were still guarding the door here, and they were still in the foundation stage. The title of senior sister Shi was very natural. Along the way, Yang Chen had already thought about it clearly. Shi Shanshan's matter should be explained as soon as possible. As for what Shi Shanshan thought, it was up to her. It was estimated that the Green Jade Immortal Island also took a fancy to his own talent in alchemy, so they generously recognized Shi Shanshan's decision at the time. Anyway, as long as it was handled properly, it would not be too much of a relationship to offend people. After receiving the news of Yang Chen's request to see her, Shi Shanshan did not neglect and immediately flew to the guest room. When she met Yang Chen, she also politely greeted him. Except for the still cold expression, there was nothing too unacceptable. Shi Shanshan really invited Yang Chen to visit the island. With the previous instructions of the head of the palace, Yang Chen did not refuse. He followed in to see the layout of the Green Jade Immortal Island and also went to Shi Shanshan's boudoir to rest for a while. When the two sat down and sipped tea, Yang Chen set his own plans. You plan to go to the Ming Qi Mountain to gain experience and invite me to go with you? Shi Shanshan was stunned and seemed surprised that Yang Chen would invite her. However, for Yang Chen's request, Shi Shanshan did not have any resistance. She had already recognized that she was Yang Chen's Dao companion. Of course, she would not refuse. All right, I haven't gone out for a long time. I just want to go and see. Sure, Shan was also a decisive person. She just let one of her servants inform her master, and she directly followed Yang Chun without even hesitation. Chapter 407. Ming-Chi Mountain was far from the Green Jade, Immortal Island, and was close to the Plain of the Monsters. Although it was not deep into the territory of the monsters, there were already many monsters here. Yang Chun really didn't know how the howling celestial dog left its blood essence here, and this blood essence was not there yet. In any case, Yang Chun had to go and see. With a drop of blood essence from the howling celestial dog, it could activate the blood of some ancient beasts. The howling celestial dog itself was a beast. This blood essence was a great supplement for it. It would not be a waste to go there, but the benefits of getting the blood essence were many. It was worth the trip. Guan Yueying knew that Yang Chun had a very fast shuttle, so Yang Chun did not hide it from Sure Shan. He directly called out the shuttle and invited her aboard. Then he controlled the direction and flew straight to Ming-Chi Mountain. Sure Shan was a little surprised, but not surprised. Feeling the high speed of the shuttle, she couldn't help but look at it a few more times. It must be that Guan Yueying had already told her about this thing. This is the magic weapon that you use to escape from Elder Guan. The two sat in the shuttle for a while and didn't talk for a long time. Sure Shan found a topic and asked. And Yang Chen nodded. He was thinking about the seventh metal true essence and didn't want to talk much. Although the seventh metal true essence was already in his hands, Yang Chun was not in a hurry to refine it immediately. His own fire attribute spirit power was in the late stage of the foundation stage. After a series of promotions, he needed to consolidate for a period of time. At this time, it was not a good thing to forcibly absorb the seventh metal true essence to cultivate the seventh metal true secret art. However, speaking of the seventh metal true essence and seventh metal true secret art, Yang Chun suddenly remembered that Sure Shan was also a metal attribute. If Sure Shan really dual cultivated with him, her metal spirit root was full value, plus Yang Chen's acquire metal spirit root was full value. The speed of cultivation was estimated to be amazing. However, with the shadow of his master in his heart, Yang Chun had no feelings for Sure Shan in any case. Perhaps this was fate. Although Yang Chun had been one of the toads who coveted Fairy Sure in his previous life, in this life, there was no admiration in his previous life. How did you kill Li Qingchun at the time? When he challenged Li Qingchun to a life and death battle, Sure Shan was also present, but she did not see how Yang Chun did it. Just a simple knife cut down, and the result fell to countless people's jaws. Sure Shan was also one of them. She was not optimistic about Yang Chen at that time, so she said that she wanted to keep Yang Chen's chastity. Now that Yang Chen was sitting next to her, Sure Shan couldn't help but ask. My immortal chopping knife is a high-grade magical item. Yang Chen didn't hide it and told her the reason. Plus, I have amazing strength, and I can wield the knife with both hands, so I have an advantage compared to his divine sense. Sure Shan was also an expert, so she understood the key point immediately. One side used physical strength and the power of divine sense to control the knife, and it was a high-grade magical item, while the other side was careless, and his magical item was not good, so this kind of result was very normal. Thank you. Sure Shan thanked Yang Chun very seriously. Because I killed Li Qingchun? Yang Chun was confused. Even if Li Qingchun was harassing Sure Shan, it shouldn't be enough to make Sure Shan want to kill him, right? If she wanted to kill Li Qingchun, Sure Shan could find a place with no one around to kill him. So why was she thanking him? Because you've helped me avoid a lot of trouble. Sure Shan replied very seriously, after your life and death challenge. Even elderly didn't come to me for trouble, and I can also be quiet, so thank you. It was because of Fairy Sure's words about keeping Yang Chen's chastity. Yang Chen became the best shield for Sure Shan for no reason, and it was agreed by Elder Guan Yueying. Even later, Elder Min Huafeng nodded, and there was no voice of opposition in the Green Jade Immortal Island. Naturally, the people outside also received the news. Those who had ideas about Shi Shanshan, in addition to racking their brains to hate Yang Chun and curse Yang Chun, it was not good to find Shi Shanshan again. He already had a Tao companion, so it wouldn't be admiring him anymore if you want to look for her. It would be disrespectful. He had inadvertently blocked a lot of trouble for Shi Shanshan. Yang Chun didn't know what to say. He could only smile bitterly, "You're welcome." After a while, Shi Shanshan was also bored looking at the two of them. She took out a beautiful tea set from the Chinquin bag and placed it on the table. Then she took out the teapot and tea leaves and began to cook inside the shuttle. It must be said that Shi Shanshan was a beauty, cold and unparalleled. At this moment, such a stunning beauty was seriously boiling water and making tea in front of him. Yang Chun couldn't help but appreciate it. After a series of techniques, Shi Shanshan held a cup of fragrant tea and placed it in front of Yang Chun. Yang Chun naturally picked up the fragrant cup and poured the tea into the teacup. After carefully tasting it, he picked up the teacup and took a sip, closing his eyes and carefully savoring it. "How does it taste?" Shi Shanshan looked at Yang Chun's expression expectantly, as if she wanted to see his evaluation of her from his face. "This water is condensed from the evaporation of the salt from the underwater spring, right?" After tasting it for a while, Yang Chun opened his eyes and asked, "You know your stuff." Shi Shanshan was a little surprised, but thinking of Yang Chun's reputation for being well-read and knowledgeable, it was not too surprising. "The water is good, but the tea leaves are still lacking." Yang Chun shook his head slightly and then evaluated, "The fire is not good either, but it's not easy for you to do this." The blunt criticism made Shi Shanshan slightly annoyed, but then she said with a cold face, "In that case, I can taste your technique today." Yang Chun was not polite at all. He nodded and directly picked some tender leaves from a few wild tea trees that he had already transplanted in the medicine garden and began to process them in front of Shi Shanshan. The profound spirit furnace suddenly appeared in front of him, and the ice flame flashed and began to dry the water in the green tea leaves. When it was almost time, it was changed to the black wood fire. The small fire was slightly baked, and Yang Chun used the profound spirit furnace as a tool for frying tea and began to stir it. Yang Chun's fire control technique, even without touching the tea leaves, completed all the operations. When the fried tea leaves were placed in the jade cup on the table, Shi Shanshan still looked sluggish, as if she couldn't believe what she saw. Using an alchemy furnace to fry tea leaves, are you the first? After Shi Shanshan stayed for a while, she suddenly smiled. Her smile was like the ice thawing. It was beautiful. Just with a smile, Shi Shanshan quickly restored the original cold expression. The jade hand gently picked up the jade cup and sent it in front of her. She first looked at the plump tea leaves, then got closer and sniffed it slightly. With this sniff, Shi Shanshan's cold face suddenly changed and became a little unbelievable. Chapter 408. Yang Chun's tea was planted in the medicine garden of the pure bottle. Although it was transplanted more than 20 years ago, several changes in the pure bottle had caused all the medicines in the medicine garden to increase their maturity for 100 years out of thin air, and this tea plant was no exception. It was already old enough, and Yang Chun's medicine garden was nourished by the fifth earth layer. There were countless spirit medicines around, and the tea leaves harvested were even more different. It's just that Yang Chun actually used the alchemy technique to fry the tea leaves. It was said to be frying. It was better to say that it was refining. 2 kinds of flames were used in a row, and the powerful medicinal power of the profound spirit furnace also infiltrated a part of it. This was clearly a simple tea pill, not just tea leaves. Such tea leaves, of course, tasted different from those ordinary tea leaves. Even if Shi Shanshan's tea leaves were also planted in a place with abundant spiritual power in the green jade Immortal Island and carefully fried, how could it be compared with Yang Chun's freshly baked new tea? Just this tea leaf alone made Shi Shanshan's dissatisfaction just be forgotten. Then when she saw that Yang Chun actually used the Nanmingli fire in the alchemy furnace to boil water, she suddenly understood what Yang Chun meant when he said that the fire couldn't be used. Shi Shanshan was a metal spirit root, unlike Yang Chun, who was proficient in everything. Now she could only stare at Yang Chun with a more skilled technique than her to brew a cup of tea that had just been made. She couldn't believe it at all. Where did Yang Chun learn such an authentic tea-making technique? After a series of techniques, a cup of tea that smelled more fragrant than before was placed in front of Shi Shanshan. Yang Chun stretched out his hand and made a pleased gesture, "Please." Shi Shanshan gracefully picked up the fragrant cup with her jade hand and took a deep sniff. She only felt that a fragrance accompanied by a spiritual power that made people feel comfortable directly rushed in her nostrils. Just this smell, it had already made people sigh. When the tea entered her mouth, Shi Shanshan really tasted the fragrance of the best tea. That refreshing smell almost seeped into her body, making her whole body wander in the fragrance of the tea. Not to mention, along with the fragrance of the tea, there was also a refreshing spiritual power. It was neither strong nor weak. It was just right to cleanse the entire body. Starting from the lips, it directly spread to the soles of the feet, making one feel as if they were floating in the air. After drinking a mouthful of tea, even the winter plum fairy, Shi Shanshan, couldn't help but reveal a look of admiration. After pondering for a long time, Shi Shanshan let out a soft sigh. When will I be able to enjoy this delicacy again? Shi Shanshan couldn't help but feel regretful. Shi Shanshan could see that Yang Chen's current attitude towards her was just perfunctory. They didn't seem like a pair of Tao companions at all. If this went on, the two of them wouldn't even be able to meet each other, let alone drink Yang Chen's tea. Shi Shanshan had no other hobbies in her life. In addition to cultivation, she was partial to the tea ceremony. She didn't even hesitate to go to the deep-sea spring to collect the water of the earth's core. The tea leaves were also planted and fried by herself. She originally thought that her tea was already delicious, but she didn't expect that what Yang Chun made in less than half an hour was many times better than what she had spent several years to refine. If Yang Chun carefully made it and spent several years to refine it, how delicious would it be? When you want to drink it, you can come to me. Yang Chun subconsciously regarded Shi Shanshan as someone around him. After saying it, he regretted it, but it was too late to take it back. To be honest, Shi Shanshan was a person who understood tea and also knew how to appreciate it. Yang Chen's behavior just now seemed simple, but there was also an element of showing off in it. To be able to show off in front of the famous cold plum fairy in his previous life, Yang Chun couldn't help but be a little moved. When Shi Shanshan drank the tea, Yang Chun was still a little expectant. When Shi Shanshan revealed that intoxicated look, Yang Chun was even more proud. Yang Chen's tea was given to people who knew how to appreciate it. That was the real pleasure, so he agreed without hesitation. However, after Yang Chun spoke, he immediately came to his senses and vaguely regretted it. Didn't he want to alienate Shi Shanshan? Why did he agree to this? Shi Shanshan was overjoyed when she heard it. She unexpectedly smiled again and thanked Yang Chun again. "You're welcome." At this point, Yang Chun was not so stingy and insisted on such a small matter. He just nodded and said, "Sometimes, freshly made things are much more delicious than things that have been carefully prepared for a long time. If you like it, come and drink the freshly made tea." The two of them each took a cup of tea and began to taste it silently. Shi Shanshan was immersed in the wonderful taste. After Yang Chun took a sip, he still shook his head slightly. "Unfortunately, the tea is not the best. It is just some wild tea that I occasionally found. It is far from those spiritual plants. The water is good, but it is Kuei water after all. It is not as good as the natural ninth water. Seawater was Kuei water, and it had a lot of salt. Even if it gushed out of the underwater spring, it was the same. Although the salt was evaporated, it caused there to be no salt at all, and it lost its natural taste. This was also the reason for Yang Chen's dissatisfaction. Shi Shanshan was tasting it while listening to Yang Chen's words in her heart. The next time she went out for experience, if she encountered good water, she must collect it and try the taste of the natural ninth water. As for the tea tree, it was something that could be encountered but not sought. But once she encountered it, she must ask for a few and plant it. Using alchemy techniques to refine a top-grade pill, it would definitely be more flavorful. Although they didn't talk much, the two seemed to have found a common pleasure. Each of them had a cup of fragrant tea, but they spent a whole incense's time. After drinking tea, it didn't seem so strange, and the atmosphere was harmonious. "What are you going to Ming Chi Mountain for?" At this time, Shi Shanshan asked Yang Chen's real purpose. "There are many beasts there. It is not necessary to go to such a dangerous place just for experience, right? I recently received a spiritual pet. There is something there that can greatly improve the ability of spiritual pets, so I want to try my luck." Yang Chen didn't hide it. Anyway, he would know it when they went together. There was no point in hiding it at this time, so he simply told her directly. "Spiritual pet?" Shi Shanshan glanced at Yang Chen and was a little surprised. "You have a lot of tricks in cultivation. It is not easy to make elixirs, and you also have to cultivate spiritual pets. Don't be greedy. I remember that the last catastrophe of evil arts in Chunyang Palace was very good. Does your master allow you to be distracted like this?" "This is my own business." Yang Chen smiled slightly, indicating that it was okay. "Besides, my spiritual pet is different. I don't need to spend too much effort." Chapter 409. Hearing Yang Chen's words, Shi Shanshan couldn't help but be curious. "What kind of spiritual pet is so easy? Can you let me see it too?" Since the two were recognized as Taoist companions, naturally they would not call each other as fellow Taoist senior brother and senior sister, and they would open their mouths as casual as you and me. Yang Chen also felt that it was too uncomfortable to say nothing along the way. It was rare for the cold plum fairy, who had always been cold, to take the initiative to speak, and he would not go against her wishes. He directly took Xiao Tian out of the medicine garden and put him in the shuttle. Xiao Tian was greedily holding a low-level flying sword and licking it. Suddenly, it appeared in a strange environment. It subconsciously held the flying sword in its mouth and looked at the two people vigilantly. When it saw Yang Chen, it ran over happily and rubbed Yang Chen's trouser's leg. It was very intimate. Shi Shanshan was stunned for a while. She thought that people like Yang Chen would find a spiritual pet that was a unique beast, but she did not expect it to be such a cute puppy. Unable to hold it in any longer, she burst out laughing. The jade face was unspeakably bright and moving. Xiao Tian seemed to notice that Shi Shanshan was laughing at it. It whined twice in its mouth and stared at Shi Shanshan with its small round eyes. It was very rude to yell at Shi Shanshan twice. It was held in Yang Chen's arms and stroked for a long time. It hummed a few times and began to lick the flying sword again. "Sorry." After Shi Shanshan laughed, she immediately felt that it was wrong. Her emotional control was very good, and she immediately returned to normal. "It's nothing." Yang Chen shrugged his shoulders and looked indifferent. When he told Gao Yu and Gong Sunling that Xiao Tian was a treasure, Gao Yu also laughed, and Gong Sunling also laughed, but Shi Shanshan laughed at this moment. With all due respect, Shi Shanshan stared at Xiao Tian for a long time and felt that it was an ordinary puppy. She said very seriously, "Your spiritual pet doesn't look so outstanding. Isn't it a pity to give it the only chance to recognize a spirit pet as its master? If you were outstanding, it wouldn't be my turn to discover you." Yang Chen smiled and did not argue. Xiao Tian was the only treasure he found not by relying on the memory of his previous life, but by simply relying on his vision. It was equivalent to an antique enthusiast picking up a big leak. He was very proud. "If you know its origin, you will never think so. Please enlighten me." Shi Shanshan's eyes lit up. She was a cultivator, and she also knew that Yang Chen was knowledgeable and would never speak without a goal. After looking at Xiao Tian for a while, she asked in doubt, "Don't say it for the time being. You won't believe it even if I say it." Yang Chen smiled and shook his head. He put Xiao Tian back into the medicine garden. In fact, at this moment, Xiao Tian had already shown some of the characteristics in Yang Chen's memory, but the appearance was very ordinary and unbelievable. Seeing that Yang Chen didn't say it, Shi Shanshan couldn't continue to ask. She could only ask other questions. What is it that can make the spiritual pet improve? It's not a very good thing. It's just a drop of blood essence left by the celestial dog in the immortal world. Yang Chen replied lightly and didn't care how shocking his words were. The blood essence of the celestial dog? Sure, Shan was shocked. She didn't know anything else, but she still knew about Yang Erlang's celestial dog. She didn't know how many times she had heard the legend. Yang Chun actually said that there was the blood essence of the celestial dog here. Sure, Shan immediately thought of the puppy, just now. Is it possible that your spiritual pet is a descendant of the celestial dog? No. Yang Chun directly shook his head and denied it, and then said, however, if you think so, I won't refute it for the time being. Anyway, you could just treat it as it is. What kind of answer is this? Sure, Shan fell into confusion again. No, but I won't refute it. Just treat it as it is? Is it or not? Believe me, an orthodox Taoist cultivator like you will never want to know what it is. Yang Chen looked at Sure Shan's puzzled look and couldn't help but remind her, don't think too much. Having said that, Sure Shan had been frowning to guess what Xiao Tian was. It's just that no matter how she racked her brains, she couldn't think of any powerful spiritual pet that looked like this. After thinking about it, it seemed that it could only be the legendary celestial dog. As for why Yang Chen knew that there was the blood essence of the celestial dog here, Sure Shan didn't ask much. Yang Chen's reputation for reading a lot of books was out there. There was no need to ask. He must have found it by chance from so many books. Yang Chen didn't expect that he accidentally released this reputation, but it saved him a lot of talking. Even when he did some strange things, others didn't doubt it, and they would take the initiative to help him find reasons and sources. Mingqi Mountain was far away. Even if it was a shuttle, it took a full month to fly. For such a long time, the two only exchanged a few words in the shuttle from time to time. Most of the time, they were practicing in relative silence. Occasionally, they would taste the fresh tea made by Yang Chen on the spot. However, the work of making tea was done by Sure Shan, and every time Sure Shan was like a virtuous wife, she would respectfully bring the tea to Yang Chen. At first, Yang Chen was not used to it, but Sure Shan insisted that this was what a woman should do. Yang Chen couldn't change it and could only slowly adapt. Mingqi Mountain was imminent, and Yang Chen and Sure Shan were also ready. Looking for a suitable place, Yang Chen put away the shuttle and stood on the ground. After observing for a long time, Sure Shan turned to ask Yang Chen, where are we going now? Where is the blood essence you said? The news left by the celestial dog was only a few words. It was clear that it was only a hidden valley in Mingqi Mountain, but where the valley was, it didn't specify. In a hidden valley, but it didn't say where it was. It will take a lot of effort to find it. Yang Chen held the bright ray sword in his hand and began to release his spiritual awareness to explore around. I hope you are right. Sure Shan didn't agree with Yang Chen's behavior of looking for a place when he arrived, but she had already followed Yang Chen to this side, so it was not good to go back. She could only follow Yang Chen and take one step at a time. Without waiting for Yang Chen to remind, Sure Shan had already summoned the flying sword. However, her flying sword was not held in her hand, but flew around her body. A looming armor also appeared on the surface of her body, but she was ready to fight. Yang Chen looked at Sure Shan and naturally made this gesture. Only then did he remember that in his previous life, Sure Shan's famous title of Winter Plum Fairy was not obtained by relying on her cold face, but it was a solid fight. With such a companion, it saved a lot of effort to take care of her. Chapter 410. The two of them were well prepared and very timely. Not long after they walked out fully armed, a monster suddenly rushed over. When it saw the two of them, it let out a roar and rushed towards the two of them while drooling. Whoosh, 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 3 consecutive sounds. Sure Shan's flying sword had flashed back and forth 3 times on the monster in the air. When the monster in the air rushed to the front of Yang Chen slashed with his sword and directly split the seriously injured monster into 2 pieces. It was the first time they cooperated, but they had a very tacit understanding. No one made any unnecessary movements and neatly dealt with the monster. In this regard, both of them were somewhat surprised. Before, no one had seen each other's fighting style. Now that they saw it for the first time, they were secretly praising each other in their hearts. Although this place was close to the monster plane, the monster was not very strong. With Sher Shanshan's gold core stage cultivation, it was effortless for her to rampage here. Coupled with Yang Chun, this killing god, it was even more successful. In less than an hour, the two of them had cooperated to kill 3 monster beasts. It seemed that they were all in the foundation establishment stage. The monster core had not yet condensed. Yang Chun always cut off the most useful parts of the monster, but when he gave it to Sher Shanshan, he was rejected by Sher Shanshan. Fairy Sher, who was as pure as ice and as clean as jade, had some mysophobia. These bloody parts that were cut off from the monster's body made Sher Shanshan somewhat disgusted. Yang Chen knew this little habit of Sher Shanshan from a memory of his previous life. He did not insist on it. He always put it away by himself. When he found a place with water to rest, it was not too late to clean these things and then give them to her. Although Mingqi Mountain was not big, it was also more than 100 miles in radius. There were no less than hundreds of valleys. It was not easy to find a valley where the howling celestial dog's blood was hidden. Yang Chun had already planned to spend at least 3 to 5 years here, searching through the valleys one by one. However, he was not in a rush. There were many demonic beasts, and they would always jump out at the most unexpected time. The two of them were very vigilant, especially Yang Chun, who was very sensitive to killing intent. The demonic beasts here did not know how to hide their auras, and were always discovered by Yang Chun in advance. After searching through 3 or 4 valleys, the two of them had already killed no less than 10 demonic beasts. They also had a better understanding of each other's cultivation and attacking habits, and their teamwork became more tacit. To Yang Chun, Sher Shanshan was a good combat partner. Unlike senior sister Gong Sunling, she was an expert who had grown up through battles. She was experienced and knew what methods to use against different enemies. She knew when to strike and when to kill. She would not be soft-hearted when it was time to strike. She was easy to cooperate with. In particular, the two of them were very tacit. The attacks were launched one after another. Those demonic beasts did not even have a chance to fight back from the beginning to the end. They were killed by the two people's continuous attacks. After killing so many demonic beasts, the two of them had a feeling at the same time it was convenient. The attack was sharp, and they dodged in time. They would never block the attack route of their companions. In the end, they always smiled after killing the demonic beasts. In his memory, Sher Shanshan rarely smiled, but Yang Chun and Sher Shanshan had seen her smile several times this time. It was not easy to think about Sher Shanshan. A beautiful woman, but she always had to put on a frosty posture. Being able to smile a few times was also an effective way to release pressure. Every valley, Yang Chun would carefully check it. The blood essence left by the howling celestial dog before it ascended was by no means ordinary goods. The place where it was stored would definitely have a strong spiritual power fluctuation. However, none of the valleys that he had checked had such characteristics. Fortunately, Yang Chun had already told Sher Shanshan about his plan. Both of them were not in a hurry. Anyway, they would search one valley after another until they found it. They had searched more than 100 valleys in a row, and it took 3 months. They had killed no less than hundreds of demonic beasts, but they had not found the so-called blood essence of the howling celestial dog. Could there be a mistake in the records? Sher Shanshan was also puzzled. It did not seem to be a way to continue searching like this. No, definitely not. Yang Chen thought about it. There was no need for the howling celestial dog to lie under such circumstances. He shook his head firmly. Where would the hidden valley be? Hidden valley? Sher Shanshan heard these words, and her eyes suddenly lit up. She suddenly asked, "Which of the valleys that we are looking for are hidden?" After being reminded by Sher Shanshan, Yang Chun suddenly understood. Indeed, the valleys that the two of them were looking for these days appeared here in broad daylight. How could it be hidden? It seemed that even a person like Yang Chun would have omissions, and there would be places that were not considered well. For Sher Shanshan's reminder, Yang Chun was very grateful. Next, the two of them began to search the valleys that were generally not easy to see. There were many hidden valleys, and there were several most likely situations. One was that the entrance was hidden, But no matter how hidden the entrance was, it was impossible not to be found by the demonic beasts here after thousands of years. Another possibility was that there was a master who used an array or other magic weapon to cover the valley. For the howling celestial dog, this was the most likely possibility. With this new idea, the purpose of the two of them was more clear. The valleys that could be seen at a glance were basically ignored, and they specifically looked for places that might have large-scale arrays. No matter how hidden the array was, under the exploration of Yang Chen's powerful spiritual awareness, as long as it was within a few feet, Yang Chen would always be able to find some clues. Shi Shanshan did not have such a strong spiritual awareness. She could only follow Yang Chen and search all the way. Hard work pays off. After changing the target this time, in less than 2 months, Yang Chen found a very hidden array trace. There was a fluctuation of spiritual power in the gap between a huge stone and a mountain rock. The gap was not big, and it was covered with thorns. Even the demonic beasts would not easily get in. After approaching, Yang Chen carefully explored it and even used some things to test it. After confirming that it was an illusory array, he took the lead and walked into the hidden illusory array. In front of him was a huge valley. It really matched the hidden valley that the howling celestial dog said. Before he had time to sigh, Shi Shanshan followed behind him and looked at the huge valley. She was surprised. The valley was very warm, and all kinds of flowers and trees were thriving. It was very dense, but there were no large animals, only some small insects. The most surprising thing was not these, but the things growing in the valley. At least at a glance, Yang Chen found a few peerless elixirs, and looking at the appearance of those plants, they were probably tens of thousands of years old. Chapter 411. 10,000 years was just a preliminary estimate of Yang Chen, but the real age may be more than 10,000 years. It must be known that Yang Erlang and the Shao Celestial Dog have ascended for more than 10,000 years. This was left when the Shao Celestial Dog ascended. It definitely exceeded this age. Half of it you pick first. Yang Chen suddenly regretted it. If he knew this, he wouldn't have brought Shi Shanshan with him and let the Green Jade Immortal Island take advantage of it. But he couldn't do the thing of having it all to himself. He stretched out his hand very generously and signaled Shi Shanshan to start first. Shi Shanshan was also a person who knew the goods. Although she was not a master of alchemy, she could see the age of these rare medicinal materials. In addition to being surprised, she couldn't help but sigh for Yang Chen's generosity. "Aren't you afraid that I will be tempted to kill you and then swallow it all?" Shi Shanshan did not start immediately, but turned to look at Yang Chen and asked coldly, "If I tell you to take it, then take it. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Yang Chen was very dissatisfied with a cold snort. To be honest, he was really not afraid of Shi Shanshan falling out with him. That way, he would have a reason to get rid of Shi Shanshan. Maybe these medicinal materials were too shocking, or maybe it was Yang Chen's domineering words that played a role. The coldness on Shi Shanshan's face weakened a lot. She once again gave Yang Chen a small smile and promised, "Okay." "Wait a minute." Shi Shanshan was about to start, but Yang Chen suddenly stopped her. "Regret it?" Shi Shanshan, who was hesitating about which one to take first, quickly turned around and looked at Yang Chen, who suddenly took out the flying sword and asked with some ridicule, "Let's go around first and see if there is any danger." However, Yang Chen ignored Shi Shanshan's words. Instead, he looked around vigilantly and said, "There might be guardian spirit beasts nearby. It's best to be careful." This logic was applicable to most treasures, and Shi Shanshan also understood this. Only now did she realize that she had misunderstood Yang Chen. Her face turned red, and she couldn't say anything. He took out his flying sword and looked around. There didn't seem to be any traces of large demonic beasts in the valley, and the growth of these plants didn't seem to be damaged. The two of them carefully flew on their flying swords. Firstly, they were afraid of damaging those herbs, and secondly, they were afraid that there might be something hidden in them. This secluded valley was not small, and the two of them flew on their sword for the time it took to burn a stick of incense before they reached the end. There was a large open space at the end of the valley, and there was a very obvious magic array on the open space. The lines of the magic array covered an area of 100 feet, and the lines of the magic array were still flickering with a faint light. In the center of the formation was a ball of blood-colored liquid the size of a human head, constantly changing its shape. But no matter how it changed, it couldn't leave the center of the magic array. This is the blood essence of the howling celestial dog that you're looking for, right? Looking at the ball of blood-colored liquid that was still full of vitality, Shan was a little surprised, and her tone was a little uncertain. It should be. The magic array was covering it, and there was no spiritual power coming out. Yangchen's divine sense couldn't penetrate it, and he really didn't know whether it was the blood essence or not. But since it was here, and it matched the description of the howling celestial dog, it shouldn't be wrong. This is a drop? Shan was a little speechless. A ball the size of a human head, no matter what, it couldn't be related to the concept of a drop. Maybe. Yangchen also didn't know what to say. The concept of a drop of the howling celestial dog might be different from ordinary people. What do we do now? Shan seemed to listen to Yangchen and asked, waiting for his command. Yangchen looked around again, pointed to the open space at the edge of the magic array, and said, "There is no trace of demonic beast activity here. Presumably the entire valley is gone." The ground at the edge of the magic array was not very hard, and it was obvious that the things inside the magic array were the most precious. Even if there were demonic beasts, with so many spiritual herbs to grow, it was estimated that they would have developed spiritual wisdom. Demonic beasts with spiritual wisdom would not easily let go of the things in this magic array. Even if they couldn't break the magic array, they would still test it. There were no traces here, and it could be seen that there were no demonic beasts. Just go and pick whatever medicinal herbs you like. Yangchen only had the blood essence of the howling celestial dog in his eyes. But he suddenly thought of something and turned his head and said, "If there is anything that you are not sure of or can't pick, wait for me to finish here and help you pick it. Don't damage it." And Shan agreed and began to look around the valley slowly. There was no hurry to pick what. Let's see what is there first. Yangchen stood at the edge of the magic array and began to carefully examine the mysteries of the magic array. All the lines of this magic array could be seen, and it saved Yangchen a lot of effort in his analysis. He flipped through the high-level magic array in his mind, but he did not find any that matched this one. As a last resort, he could only use the most basic principles of magic array to analyze it. It was not impossible to break the magic array by force, but it would easily damage the blood essence, and the gains would not make up for the losses, so it was better to take a closer look. Sitting at the edge of the magic array, Yangchen started to analyze the principles of the magic array and judge the functions of the magic array. Just by sitting down and analyzing, it took him 2 whole months. Shan did not know why, but she did not pick any spiritual herbs at all. She walked around the valley and returned to this side. Looking at Yangchen's careful analysis, she did not say much and just sat at the side to cultivate and at the same time protect Yangchen. So that's how it is. Yangchen, who had been staring at the magic array, suddenly revealed a smile on his face and blurted out these few words. "Have you figured it out?" Suddenly, a voice came from beside him. It was Shan. Yangchen was startled. Why did Shan not go to collect the spiritual herbs? Clear. Yangchen slowly stood up and said with a smile, "A sealing magic array, a preservation magic array, a protection magic array, a levitation magic array, and a spirit-gathering magic array. It is just a few of them combined. It is not a troublesome matter." Yangchen. Shan suddenly shouted at Yangchen, and Yangchen responded by turning his head. "You are so confident and bold to analyze the magic array here. Are you really not afraid that I will murder you for your wealth?" Shan's face was habitually cold, but there was a trace of doubt in her eyes. Although Fairy Shur has killed a lot of people to protect the Tao, Yangchen blurted out without thinking, "But I have never heard of the act of murder for money." This was not what he heard in this life, but the memory of his previous life. Since it is a murder, of course, it will not let people know. Sure, Shan-Shan's eyes lit up slightly, but she still said with a straight face, "You haven't heard of it. It doesn't mean that I haven't done it." With that said, she turned her head and looked around the valley, and asked Yang Chun, "Do you know if the Green Jade Immortal Island gets these elixirs, how much benefit will it be?" Sure, Shan-Shan, as a disciple of the Green Jade Immortal Island, naturally has to consider for the sect. Chapter 412. If you like it, then take more. It doesn't matter. Yang Chen's words made Sure Shan-Shan almost fall to the ground. Did Yang Chun really not know the value of these elixirs? How could it be? Yang Chun was a little famous alchemist. How could he not know the value of elixirs? If this was the case, then he really regarded Sure Shan-Shan as one of his own. Thinking of this, Sure Shan-Shan's heart was also a little warm. This was the first time she had such a feeling for a man. Yang Chen didn't know that his casual words would make Sure Shan-Shan have such a big misunderstanding. His purpose was very simple. The blood essence of the howling celestial dog was a must. As for the other things, they were all part of this trip. It didn't matter if it was more or less. It was just some accidental discovery of 10,000 years elixirs. Yang Chen didn't put it in his eyes. Just the elixirs in Yang Chen's memory. There were more than a few places. There were not many here. There were not many here. It was really not worth being greedy because of this. However, in the eyes of Sure Shan-Shan, this performance was different. In the face of such a huge wealth, he was not tempted. This was the real cultivator who was not moved by external things. No wonder in just 30 years, Yang Chen's reputation rose. There was indeed a reason for it. At this moment, Sure Shan-Shan suddenly had a realization. She only felt that her state of mind had improved and unconsciously entered the state of meditation. Yang Chun did not find the strangeness of Sure Shan-Shan. He knew the principle of the array, and at the same time, he also knew how to enter this array. He took Xiao Tian out of the medicine garden, took the flying sword in its mouth, and walked into the array with Xiao Tian. Xiao Tian kept barking because the flying sword he was holding was robbed. Yang Chun gently stroked it and smiled. "I have something good for you. After eating this, use the advanced flying sword." Xiao Tian didn't know if he understood it or not, but looking at the blood essence of the howling celestial dog, his eyes were shining and his saliva flowed down. It seemed that he also discovered the peculiarity of the blood essence. The array was only 100 feet in radius, but Yang Chan walked back and forth for almost the time it took for 2 incense sticks to burn before he reached the center. In order not to destroy the integrity of the formation and not to waste any bit of the blood essence inside, Yang Chun used the most complicated method. If an array cultivator saw Yang Chen's actions, they would definitely be so shocked that their jaws would drop. Several arrays were combined into one, and they were arranged by a master of the Deshang stage. The array that has been running for more than 10,000 years. He could easily walk in without destroying the array at all. This was enough to make those so-called masters who have studied arrays for a lifetime feel ashamed to death. Directly facing the suspended howling celestial dog's blood essence, without the obstruction of the array, Yang Chun discovered the power of this blood essence. The spiritual energy contained in it was overwhelming. Standing here, one would actually feel a sense of oppression. Such a powerful blood essence. If Xiao Tian were to take it all now, it was estimated that there would only be one result. That was, it would explode. However, this was not difficult for Yang Chun. He now used a bucket-sized jade stone and quickly carved it into a jade bottle with a flying sword. Then, referring to the preservation and suspension parts of this array, Yang Chen also engraved 2 arrays on the inner wall of the jade bottle, and then reached out and put all the blood essence into the jade bottle. It was said to be a jade bottle, but in fact, it should be called a jade bucket. A large group of blood essence was in the jade bottle. Just like in this array, it was suspended in the center and did not touch the 4 walls at all. He carefully used his spiritual power to take about a spoon of it and fed it to Xiao Tian, who had already drooled. Xiao Tian happily drank this blood essence, and then a red light flashed up and down his body. After a while, Xiao Tian couldn't support it and was drowsy. Yang Chun knew that this was the effect of the blood essence. He carefully put Xiao Tian back into the medicine garden, and then he followed the pace of the array and slowly walked out of the array. After coming out, Yang Chan saw that Shi Shanshan was already in that state, and it seemed that she had realized something. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. A genius was a genius. She could always comprehend in some places that ordinary people didn't pay attention to, but he didn't know what she understood this time. At the moment, he didn't do anything, but he was not far from Shi Shanshan to protect her. He felt strange in his heart. When did he start to not care about Shi Shanshan being by his side? But he was not afraid of her making a surprise attack at all. Although in the memory of his previous life, the Cold Plum Fairy was a person of her word, but he and Shi Shanshan didn't seem to have the kind of friendship that could be completely unguarded, right? However, even he couldn't say it clearly. How could he not guard against Shi Shanshan at all? Even after more than 2 months of meditation, he didn't think that there would be a Shi Shanshan who could attack him at any time. And the strange thing was that looking at the appearance of Shi Shanshan, she was in a state of meditation, and she was not afraid of him having any bad thoughts. This kind of trust was actually produced unconsciously. Yangshan also felt strange. Didn't he want to draw a line with Shi Shanshan? How could such a thing happen? Yang Chun, who was puzzled, could only protect Shi Shanshan while observing the situation of Xiao Tian in the medicine garden. Xiao Tian had fallen into a deep sleep at this moment, but there was a trace of blood around his body, getting thicker and thicker, like a cocoon wrapping Xiao Tian in it. On Xiao Tian's body, a burst of spiritual power had begun to surge. Compared with the previous state, it was simply a complete change. The blood essence of the Xiao Tian dog is really a great supplement. Yang Chen's heart sincerely praised and guessed perhaps, after you have taken all the blood essence, you can really stimulate your bloodline and become a real Yazi. That's right, this Xiao Tian that looked like a puppy had a trace of Yazi's bloodline. When Yang Chen accidentally discovered it, he couldn't believe his eyes at that time. However, the bloodline was not very prominent, but Xiao Tian had already shown a trace of the characteristics of Yazi. Its head was like a jackal, and its mouth was like a sharp blade. It was just that the spiritual power in its body was too light, making people easily mistake it as an ordinary puppy. Yazi, one of the 9 sons of the dragon, Yang Chen didn't think that he could meet it in the mortal world. Perhaps, after the Yazi bloodline of Xiao Tian was fully stimulated, Yang Chen could consider going to the Dragon Palace to collect other magic weapons. In the past, only 1 shuttle was taken out, and there were still many left. He just didn't know if the dragon chi in Yazi's body could let Yang Chen collect all the treasures of the entire Dragon Palace. If it could, it would be the real Immortal's Cave. Chapter 4:13. Yazi, the second son of the dragon body and the head of a jackal. The character is strong, brave and good at fighting, bloodthirsty and belligerent, always holding the sword in his mouth, glaring, engraved on the blade ring and the sword hilt to increase his own powerful power. Now Xiao Tian has not fully stimulated the bloodline of Yazi. It looks like a jackal head. The body is simply a jackal body because it is too small. It is a puppy in the eyes of others. It is very normal not to be discovered. Yang Chun and Yazi are also inextricably linked, not to mention anything else. Just the ghost head knife he used on the execution ground, the so-called ghost head, is Yazi. Ordinary people think that by engraving Yazi on the blade ring and the sword hilt, they can increase the power of their own weapons. These are just legends. Maybe it will work, but Yang Chun can be sure of one thing. When the real Yazi is attached to the weapon, it is really powerful. Weapon destroyer, evil destroyer, capable of cutting through all living things and devouring weapon spirits. With these powerful attributes, even a feather duster could become a divine weapon that could shake the world. I don't know when his own flying sword is possessed by the mature Yazi, how miserable those who fight with Yang Chun will be. The bloodline of Xiao Tian has been stimulated, and Yang Chun can already feel the killing intent. After thinking about it, Yang Chun directly put the bright ray sword beside Yazi. This is the sword that Yang Chun is most interested in his life. It may not be the strongest, but it needs Yang Chun to protect it with his life. Shi Shanshan was meditating, and Xiao Tian also slept for a month before waking up. After waking up, he immediately held the bright ray sword that Yang Chun put beside him and licked it. After licking for a while, it seems that someone is spying on it. He quickly ran to a hidden corner with the bright ray sword and continued to enjoy it, as if there is something delicious on this flying sword. Yang Chun knows that this is the instinct of Yazi. He likes weapons. At the same time of licking is not only enjoyment, but it will also greatly enhance the attributes of the weapon. Perhaps the current Yazi bloodline was not enough, but it was still easy to make the bright ray sword sharper. The celestial dog bloodline, which was the size of a human head, only fed Xiao Tian a small spoon, but Yang Chun did not immediately feed it again. Spirit pets were the same as cultivators. Once they reached a certain realm, it was best to consolidate for a period of time. Otherwise, it was easy for them to break through to a higher realm too quickly and cause their foundation to be unstable. Shi Shanshan had been meditating for 2 months. Yang Chun looked after Xiao Tian while quietly guarding her. Until one day after 2 months, Shi Shanshan suddenly opened her eyes. Congratulations! Looking at Shi Shanshan's gaze, Yang Chun knew that Shi Shanshan had comprehended something again, and her cultivation had improved again. You've been guarding this place? Shi Shanshan did not smile because of Yang Chun's congratulations, but she habitually maintained her cold temper and asked, if I don't guard it, what if you're disturbed by something? Yang Chun replied lazily, stood up, and stretched a lot. Shi Shanshan did have some insights, which led to the improvement of her state of mind. Looking at Yang Chun's very comfortable stretching action, Shi Shanshan suddenly had an impulse to do the same posture that disregarded her image, but she was still restrained by her own consciousness and did not do anything rude. Her eyes swept across the valley and saw the intact medicinal materials. Shi Shanshan did not seem to be surprised at all. If it was a greedy villain, maybe he would have already swept it away, and she, who was meditating, would also take the opportunity to kill her. Thinking of this, Shi Shanshan was suddenly surprised. How could she be so unguarded against Yang Chun? One had to know that when she was meditating and comprehending, a slight interruption would lead to chi deviation, and a serious injury could lead to death. She could not easily experiment unless she was in an absolutely safe place. How could she be so reckless? After thinking about it, the conclusion she came to was the same as Yang Chun's. Unknowingly, she actually had a sense of trust in Yang Chun. Could it be because she agreed to be his Tao companion, and this was a natural feeling? Shi Shanshan could not explain it clearly, but she knew that she had already comprehended twice when she met Yang Chun. The first time was when Yang Chun had not yet started cultivating, and he said those words on the execution ground. This time, it was because Yang Chun did not care about those precious medicinal materials. Although she did not have a deep understanding of Yang Chun, now Shi Shanshan felt that it was not a bad thing to do dual cultivation with Yang Chun. Have you chosen these medicinal materials? Yang Chun stretched and felt much more comfortable. He pointed to the large pile of precious spiritual herbs in the valley. Shi Shanshan looked around and then looked at Yang Chun. Suddenly, she asked, do you want me to take some? Half is the rule when we meet. Yang Chun smiled and asked casually, why haven't you chosen? Do you want me to give you some advice? Okay. Shi Shanshan followed Yang Chun's words and nodded. She was quite surprised in her heart. Then let's start from here. Yang Chun really wanted to introduce some good things to Shi Shanshan. Since he had already agreed to share half, why not do it nicely? This is more vulgar, but it is also the most pleasing. Yang Chun pointed to a 6th grade leaf and said, ginseng 10,000 years old, no refining process is needed. It is directly consumed, and it is possible for a Yuanying stage master to become a Deshang stage master. This is a 9-leaf mysterious ginseng. Yang Chun pointed to another plant and said, as long as it is more than 10,000 years old, it is basically the best of the best. The medicinal pill refined can at least have the effect of a 3rd grade. A series of introductions were quickly said in Yang Chun's mouth, without the slightest hesitation. One by one, Shi Shanshan, who was listening, almost smiled bitterly. These things that Yang Chun introduced were, of course, true. Sure, Shan was not a person who didn't know anything. But what she couldn't figure out was that Yang Chun actually really said the relatively more valuable part of these rare medicinal materials, and the rest were some ordinary goods. Was this Yang Chun's kindness? Yang Chun, who was showing off one by one, was unaware of what his actions had caused Sure Shan to think. Anyway, after he had the blood essence of the howling celestial dog, these things were no longer in his eyes. What could be more precious than a Yazi spirit pet? Others didn't know, but how could Yang Chun not be clear about it? When the Immortal beheading saber was added with a complete 10 sword souls, driven by the great Yin and Yang 5-element secret art, and there was also a Yazi attached to it, not to mention the mortal world, even if the spiritual world and the immortal world were all added up, was there still an existence that the Immortal beheading saber couldn't cut? Compared with Yazi, these 10,000 years elixirs, even if he gave 10 times more, Yang Chun would not feel distressed. Chapter 414. Yang Chun's performance was very casual, but Sure Shan was not so relaxed. Although she has realized from Yang Chun that some of the state of mind was not moved by external things, but when Yang Chun was so generous to her, she was still a little surprised. Sure Shan was very contradictory. So many 10,000 years spirit medicines, if she brought them back, whether it was for herself or for the Green Jade Immortal Island, it would be a huge wealth. But the problem was that such a wealth was likely to make some elders in the sect with ulterior motives have other ideas, such as Elderly Junyu, the predecessor of Li Qingxin. At that time, they would definitely have a dispute. Yang Chun went out with her and got so many 10,000 years spirit medicines. The two sides would share it equally? Why? Sure Shan was in the Jiadan stage, and she would definitely contribute the most, and Yang Chun was a younger generation junior in the foundation stage. It must be because of others, and he would follow Sure Shan. Subsequently, the Green Jade Immortal Island and Chunyang Palace would have a series of entanglements. This was not Sure Shan's baseless assumption, but there were precedents to follow. It was not the first time that several big sects had done this kind of thing. There would definitely be a dispute. Maybe there would be a fight between the two sides. The two sects that were originally harmonious would become enemies. This kind of situation was what Sure Shan was never willing to see. It was not that Sure Shan did not consider the sect, but sometimes if the benefits were too great, it would cause imbalance. The so-called raising a little bit of rice is a bit like this. Only Sure Shan herself knew that getting these things actually had little to do with her, but Yang Chun had planned it for a long time. Looking for her to go out was only because of the request of the elders of the two sides. What was more gratifying was that in this process, the two sides had a tacit understanding and trust. If something like what Sure Shan imagined happened, Sure Shan simply didn't know how to face Yang Chun's trust, especially when she didn't make much effort to get the benefits. After thinking about it, Sure Shan felt that she shouldn't share these, but after asking several times, Yang Chun seemed to have made up his mind to share them with her. Seeing that Yang Chun was still explaining, Sure Shan took a long breath and made a decision. Yang Chun, I don't have anything like a medicine garden in my hands. You should put away first. After saying these words to Yang Chun, Sure Shan felt a lot of balance in her heart. It's too much of a waste to take it away like this. When I need it, I will ask you for it. Yang Chun's eyes widened. What did this mean? He wants me to keep it? How could Yang Chun not know Sure Shan's intention? He teased. Aren't you afraid that I'll get greedy at the sight of money and take it all for myself? You didn't care if I would swallow it when you were studying the formation, didn't you? Sure Shan finally smiled. Looking at Yang Chun's eyes, it seemed that there was a hint of provocation. To be honest, I don't understand. Yang Chun shook his head. Of course, he could put these things into the medicine garden. However, this kind of good thing, Yang Chun didn't think that Sure Shan, the core disciple of the Green Jade Immortal Island, would give up so easily. Didn't she consider the needs of the Green Jade Immortal Island? There are many people on the island who don't think highly of you. Sure Shan didn't hide it and told him the reason directly. If these things appear on the island, many people will target you and Chunyang Palace. Yang Chun was happy for a while, but he didn't think so much. When Shi Shanshan reminded him, Yang Chen also immediately realized the problem. In his previous life, a 10,000 years old vermilion fruit could make the young sect master of Taishaman tempted. In this valley, how could there be more than a 10,000 years old elixir? After thinking about this, Yang Chen looked at Shi Shanshan with a different gaze. He was ecstatic because he got the blood essence of the celestial hound and stimulated the Yazi bloodline. Fortunately, there was Shi Shanshan to remind him. He was a little happy. This cold beauty did not fail to live up to his trust, and she also took the initiative to propose such a method. But Yang Chen had a headache. If this goes on, how should he refuse Shi Shanshan? However, what Shi Shanshan said was also a way, and it was the best way to maximize the efficacy of these elixirs. The premise was that both sides had enough trust in each other. Now, Shi Shanshan had trusted Yang Chen. As a man, if Yang Chen was unreasonable, it would be too unreasonable. At the moment, Yang Chen also nodded directly. Okay, then let's do it together. You dig up the roots, and I will transplant them. This work was not easy. It would be a pity to damage the elixirs of more than 10,000 years old no matter where they were. Under Yang Chen's suggestion, Shi Shanshan carefully used a wooden sword made from the trunk of a big tree to dig up the roots of those elixirs and handed them to Yang Chen for Yang Chen to transplant. Sometimes, several elixirs grew together, and they were not separated. A large piece of land was dug up and sent to the medicine garden together. It was much easier for Yang Chen to transplant. The environment in the medicine garden was better than the outside, and the spiritual power was abundant. With the fifth earth layer as the foundation, these 10,000 years old elixirs easily took root in the medicine garden. The two cooperated to sweep all the elixirs in this valley, and it took a full 2 months. Counting the time, Yang Chen and Shi Shanshan had been out for a whole year. Where are we going next? Shi Shanshan had gained a lot from this trip. She improved her realm and got so many elixirs, so she did not reject traveling with Yang Chen at all. After doing this, Yang Chen had no meaning in Mingqi Mountain. So Shi Shanshan asked Yang Chen's arrangement. I originally wanted to go to the sea to have a look, but now that I have this batch of elixirs, I guess I have to go back and refine a batch of elixirs. Yang Chen did not hide it. He was very conflicted now. Of course, he did not want to have more contact with Shi Shanshan, so he could only use the excuse of refining elixirs. All right, Shi Shanshan did not mean to be entangled, and nodded. It just so happens that I have some enlightenment. I will go back and consolidate my realm. There was a beginning and an end. Of course, Yang Chen had to send Shi Shanshan back to the Green Jade Immortal Island. Shi Shanshan did not refuse. She tasted the tea refined by Yang Chen on the shuttle several times. Later, she asked for a batch as a reserve, and then she sent Yang Chen out of the Green Jade Immortal Island. Returning to the mountain alone, Yang Chen began to think about what to do when he went back this time. Alchemy was just a reason to perfunctory Shi Shanshan. However, if there was a batch of 10,000 years old elixirs, it seemed to be a good choice. His master ancestor was now facing the bottleneck of the peak Yuanying stage. With these elixirs, he might really be able to cross the bottleneck and enter the Deshang stage. Of course, these still needed to be considered. Yang Chen just completed the instructions of the head of the palace and went back to meet his master. Chapter 415. This trip to Mingqi Mountain, the harvest was huge. Except for the fact that there were so many elixirs in the hidden valley, everything else was in the hands of Yang Chen. The only thing that gave Yang Chen a headache was that he still couldn't make it clear to Shi Shanshan this time. This would be another trouble in the future. However, the valley where the howling celestial dog hid its blood essence also gave Yang Chen a hint. The owner of the Xiangyang Mountain Medicine Garden, who also ascended to the immortal world, was the owner of Yang Chen's medicine garden. He must have ascended from the mortal world to the spiritual world and then to the immortal world for at least 3,000 or 4,000 years. This was still the case where he had excellent talent and there was no delay along the way, so he could use such a short time. If calculated according to this time, then the age of the medicinal materials in the medicine garden was not right. The medicinal materials that Yang Chun saw were at most more than 1,000 years old. Could it be that the medicine garden had been looted once 1,000 years ago, but it was replanted? But this didn't make sense. The only explanation was that in the medicine garden, there were secrets that Yang Chun had not discovered. Perhaps his cultivation was not enough. Perhaps the opportunity had not arrived. Anyway, the predecessor only said the way to enter the medicine garden at that time. As for the things inside, it was estimated that Yang Chun had to explore it himself. Along the way, he thought about how to deal with Shi Shanshan's affairs. When he returned to Chunyang Palace, without saying a word, he went to see his master first. Yang Chun went out for a year, and knowing that Yang Chun was with Fairy Shi of the Green Jade Immortal Island, Gao Yu's mood was not very good, and even her cultivation was not very enthusiastic. Suddenly seeing Yang Chun, she smiled like a flower, as if all her troubles no longer existed. Of course, Yang Chun would report this trip to Ming Chi Mountain to his master one by one, including the blood essence of the howling celestial dog, the 10,000 years elixir, and so on. Except for the origin of the howling celestial dog, everything else was revealed. For Gao Yu, Yang Chun trusted her unconditionally. Gao Yu couldn't help but be surprised when she heard that there was such a huge harvest, and that Shi Shanshan even considered the possibility of getting into trouble because of her wealth and gave all the elixirs to Yang Chun for safekeeping. What was going on? Did she really treat Yang Chun as her husband? So she trusted him unconditionally? Gao Yu didn't know what Shi Shanshan was thinking, but Shi Shanshan trusted Yang Chun, so Gao Yu couldn't say anything. Of course, obtaining a lot of elixirs was indeed something to be happy about, and Yang Chun's safe return was more important than anything else. Gao Yu only told Yang Chun to handle it well, and didn't say anything else. In the end, Gao Yu told Yang Chun a piece of news that surprised Yang Chun. The genius disciple of Blue Cloud sect, Sun Qingxue, had already been in Chunyang Palace to see Yang Chun for many days. Yang Chun had not come back. Sun Qingxue actually stayed in the guest house of Chunyang Palace and waited. Gao Yu didn't know what the relationship between Yang Chun and Sun Qingxue was. She just told him the news and asked him to see Sun Qingxue. Speaking of Sun Qingxue, Yang Chun's eyes immediately flashed the image of the timid little girl on the execution ground. With the help of Yang Chun, the dancing snow fairy of the later generations not only did not suffer from the catastrophe of the evil cultivation, but also directly worshipped Elder Hua, wanting to cultivate. Presumably, she had now succeeded in the Zhuji phase? Before Yang Chun got acquainted with Sun Qingxue, it was purely a coincidence. Later, he helped her, but also with a certain utilitarian heart. Anyway, it was much better to make friends with the dancing snow fairy than to offend her. As for more, Yang Chun didn't ask for much. He was just wondering why Sun Qingxue came to him. Soon, Yang Chun saw Sun Qingxue in the guest house. Sun Qingxue in a cyan dress, even though she had been here for so many years, still had the appearance of a pure little girl. Seeing Yang Chun, Sun Qingxue's face instantly bloomed with a smile and sweetly called out to Yang Chun, "Brother Yang, you are back. Why are you here?" They hadn't seen each other for a long time, and Yang Chun was still very happy to see this little sister. "I built the foundation. Master, let me come out to gain experience." Sun Qingxue gracefully turned a circle in front of Yang Chun, showing her youthful figure, then blinked her big eyes and asked, "Brother Yang, am I beautiful?" "Very beautiful," Yang Chun replied solemnly. He had already seen that Sun Qingxue had already built the foundation, and her pure, would attribute spiritual power was full of the aura of Peng Lai Divine Wood. It must have been the Zhuji pill left by Yang Chun at that time that worked. Then don't be a Taoist companion with Sister Shi, okay? In Sun Qingxue's eyes, there was a light that was very inconsistent with her temperament, and Yang Chun was stunned. "What did you say?" Yang Chun couldn't believe that this sentence was said by Sun Qingxue as soon as they met, and couldn't help but ask again in surprise. "I will be your Taoist companion. You don't want to be Sister Shi's Taoist companion, okay?" This time, Sun Qingxue said it more clearly and thoroughly. After saying it, she felt a little shy. Her little face was blushing as she sat there, pinching the corner of her clothes and no longer dared to look up at Yang Chun. Sun Qingxue must have a good impression of Yang Chun. There was no need to ask this. When Yang Chun left the Blue Cloud sect, Sun Qingxue immediately followed, Hua wanting to cultivate in seclusion, abolishing all her previous cultivation and starting from scratch. Sun Qingxue, who had the full value of the wood spirit root, was really worthy of being a cultivation genius. In less than 10 years, she had already succeeded in building the foundation, and it was still without the use of Yang Chen's Zhuji pill. Later, under the guidance of Hua Wanting, after building the foundation, she took the third gray Zhuji pill of Yang Chun and completely converted the first wood spirit power into the spirit power of the Panlai Divine Wood. After serving Hua Wanting, it was already 20 years later. Then Sun Qingxue heard that Shi Shanshan was going to keep her chastity for Yang Chun, and the Green Jade Immortal Island also supported Yang Chun to be a Taoist companion of Shi Shanshan. In the heart of the little person, although she has always regarded Yang Chun as a big brother, but when she heard this news, she still felt uncomfortable. After several years of continuous cultivation, there was not much progress because of her mood problems. Elder Hua Wanting also seemed to understand the knot in her apprentice's heart, so she simply let her come out to experience. No one thought that Sun Qingxue went straight to Chunyang Palace. After hearing that Yang Chun was traveling with Shi Shanshan, she waited here for Yang Chun for a year. When they met, she asked this question. Yang Chun's eyes were almost the size of Copper Bell. Looking at the little person not far away, he was speechless for a long time. What is wrong with him? The Cold Plum Fairy wanted to be his own Taoist companion, and now even the Dancing Snow Fairy wanted to come, and he wanted to compete with the Cold Plum Fairy? The troubles of Shi Shanshan had not yet been rid of. How did a Sun Qingxue suddenly appear? Sister Shi is a metal spirit root, full value, I know. Sun Qingxue saw that Yang Chun was stunned and did not answer. She raised her head and said, I am a wood spirit root, full value. What makes fire, double cultivation, is more suitable than Sister Shi, right? You are a fire attribute. Fire restrains metal. You are mutually restrained. Chapter 416. Yang Chun didn't know how to answer Sun Qingxue. He could only respond with hesitation. This is a bit sudden. Let me think about it. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked, Does Elder Hua know about this? Master knows. Sun Qingxue replied quickly with a natural look. Yang Chun thought that Sun Qingxue did it behind Hua Wanting and Blue Cloud sect, so that he had an excuse, but he didn't expect that Elder Hua Wanting actually knew about it. Elder Hua knows? Yang Chun's eyes widened again. What is going on? Elder Hua knows, and even the sovereign knows. Sun Qingxue said happily. She was happiest about this. Her master supported her, and even the sovereign supported her. They all said that they should fight for their own fate, so I came. Sun Qingxue Yang Chun didn't know what kind of expression he had now, but it was certain that it was not so good-looking. But Sun Qingxue was looking at him so eagerly, Yang Chun had to give a delayed answer. You let me think about it. Yang Chun squeezed out a smile. I have to think about it. And I'll wait for you. Sun Qingxue was not unhappy. She agreed happily, and then went forward to pull Yang Chun's arm. She said in a pleading tone, Brother Yang, I haven't had a good look at Meiqing Mountain. Can you accompany me? Could Yang Chun say no? As the host, it was normal for him to bring his guests around his own territory. However, compared to Sun Qingxue's cheerful expression, Yang Chun was obviously out of it. On the other hand, Sun Qingxue was in high spirits, as if she was interested in everything. She looked at everything with great interest. Together with Yang Chun, they rode their swords and flew to the market square of the Thousand Autumn Pavilion to look at some small things before following Yang Chun back to the Fierce Sun courtyard. After settling Sun Qingxue down, Yang Chun came to Gao Yu's residence again with a sad face. He simply repeated Sun Qingxue's words and sighed. What's going on? In his previous life, when Yang Chun was in the mortal world, he was hunted for most of his life, so he didn't have time to care about these things. Whether it was the Cold Plum Fairy or the Dancing Snow Fairy, when had Yang Chun ever hoped to get the favor of the two fairies? There are so many outstanding cultivators out there, So how could these two take a fancy to a single one? In this life, he didn't expect that he would have a relationship with them. Two great beauties. What are you not happy about? He didn't know what Gao Yu was thinking, but at this moment, she began to tease Yang Chun. I'm going to see the head of the palace. Yang Chun couldn't get a solution from Gao Yu, so he could only leave dejectedly, hoping to get some guidance from the head of the palace. This is a good thing. When the head of the palace heard that Yang Chun asked to see him, he immediately let him in. After listening to Yang Chun's narration, he couldn't help but laugh. Two flower-like cultivation geniuses want to be your Tao companion. It shows that my Chunyang Palace's disciples are excellent. How about accepting both of them? Anyway, you have more than one kind of spiritual power. Yang Chun was a spiritual power cultivator. The head of the palace was clear, so he would say this. But after Yang Chun listened, he became more and more depressed. How could even the head of the palace be so unreliable? The Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, the high-level people actually support their disciples to be your Tao companion. The head of the palace stroked his beard and said, could it be that they are interested in your potential? Before Yang Chun came, he had already considered this problem. From the perspective of the high-level people of the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect, they would never easily allow the genius disciples of their own sects to be the Tao companion of others. The only explanation was that Yang Chun had recently refined the medicinal pills for the Black Tiger predecessor. Of course, these big sects would not accept ordinary cultivators, but a genius alchemist master was another matter, especially when this alchemist master had begun to refine the medicinal pills used by the masters of the Deshang stage when he was in the foundation stage. This was easier to understand. The sect considered nothing else but the interests of the sect. However, the attitude of the two women themselves towards Yang Chun made Yang Chun have a headache. Shi Shanshan was guilty because she used him and she felt that he would die in the life and death challenge. So she said something to keep his chastity. Unexpectedly, Yang Chun won. So Shi Shanshan unilaterally announced that she had become Yang Chun's Tao companion. Of course, there was the intention of solving the trouble with Yang Chun. But after the subsequent contact, Yang Chun also found that Shi Shanshan herself did not resist him. As for Sun Qingxue, she was more simple. Yang Chun saved her twice and found her a master of the Deshang stage. Gratitude plus the kind of blind trust, there was also the mind of a young girl. Sun Qingxue really liked Yang Chun, so she wanted to be Yang Chun's Tao companion. It was just that in Yang Chun's heart, it had always been occupied by his master. For the appreciation of the two fairies, he was somewhat unprepared, especially Sun Qingxue. Shi Shanshan had not yet been solved, and Sun Qingxue jumped out. Headache. This is a good thing that others can't ask for. The big advantage has been taken by you, and you still refuse. Seeing Yang Chun's frown, the head of the palace could not help but snort coldly. If you let the admirers of the two of them know, it would be a problem for you to go out of Meiqing Mountain in the future. Palace Master, what should this disciple do? Yang Chun did not have the experience of dealing with this kind of thing, and the memory of his previous 10,000 years could not help him a little bit. Even if his murderous intent was enough, it was impossible to kill Fairy Shi and Sun Qingxue. Right? There was no way. He could only turn to the head of the palace for help. Since the Blue Cloud sect has also come forward, it could be dragged on. The head of the palace knew that Yang Chun was in a dilemma and could only give him such a way. In the end, you still have to solve it yourself, and no one else can help you. But, after saying these two words, the head of the palace sighed. If you must refuse, maybe you will offend the Green Jade Immortal Island and the Blue Cloud sect at the same time. If you never mention the matter of a double cultivation companion again in the future, otherwise, if you find anyone to be a Tao companion, you must be prepared to be strangled by the two major sects at the same time. The face of a big sect was refuted, and sometimes there was only one way to recover it. This point Yang Chun was clearer than the head of the palace. However, even though Yang Chun did not blink when it came to killing people, he could not do this kind of thing. He could only nod in annoyance. If it really couldn't be done, he could only drag it on and wait until later. As for how long it would be delayed, Yang Chun himself could not say it clearly. Who could know that the magical disciple of the Chunyang Palace, Yang Chun, had such happy troubles? Chapter 417. It seemed that Sun Qingshue's visit this time was to express this intention to Yang Chun. It was estimated that Sun Qingxue also felt guilty because she had to fight with Fairy Sure for a Dao companion. After waiting for Yang Chun, although she did not get a positive answer from Yang Chun, she was also very happy to return to the sect, saying that she was going back to concentrate on cultivation. After sending away Sun Qingxue, Yang Chun simply had a headache. After thinking about it, he decided not to go out for the time being. It was better to stay in the fierce sun courtyard and cultivate well. Senior apprentice Sister Gong Sunling also came out for a period of time, so Yang Chun went to visit her. He was still laughed at by Gong Sunling that he was too lucky. Fortunately, Gong Sunling did not say much. She just asked him to recommend a few secret methods that she could use next, and she began to study them again. On the side of Du Qian and Wang Yuan, Yang Chun also visited them one by one, and everyone expressed their opinions. He gave tips on their cultivation problems, and by the way, he also offered elixirs. Several senior apprentice brothers were very grateful. The head of the palace did not seem to be worried about the troubles of Yang Chun. Looking at his meaning, there was a vague plan. Yang Chun did not dare to talk about this with the head of the palace. Wang Yong was refining the life source flying sword with the Qilin horn and had not yet come out. For a while, Yang Chun could not find a good helper. After greeting his master, Yang Chun once again closed himself in the room and began to cultivate. The seventh metal true essence obtained from the hands of Dao Ba should also come in handy. Before, because he had just improved his cultivation base, he needed to consolidate the realm. Now Yang Chun also went out to experience alchemy and felt that it was almost the same. He simply improved the seventh metal spirit power. Xiao Tian also cultivated for a period of time. Before Yang Chun went into retreat, he fed it 2 spoonfuls of the blood essence of the celestial dog, which was twice as much as the last time. Soon Xiao Tian was surrounded by the blood cocoon again and began to fall asleep again. However, the color of the blood cocoon this time was darker than before. It seemed to have changed due to the pure bloodline. Looking at the changes in Xiao Tian, Yang Chun's mood was much better. He finally remembered that he would eventually have to face many powerful enemies. He couldn't help but feel anxious and quickly entered a state of cultivation. The seventh metal true secret art had already been in his hands. Now that he had the seventh metal true essence, cultivation was no longer difficult. The jade bottle given by Knife Scar was taken out by Yang Chun. The talisman on it was carefully peeled off, and a trace of seventh metal true essence exuded from the mouth of the bottle. Holding his breath, Yang Chun inhaled this breath from his nostrils and began to operate according to the seventh metal true secret art. The whole person suddenly fell into a quiet state. The seventh metal spirit power began to slowly change as a trace of seventh metal true essence infiltrated it. This most original seventh metal aura quickly assimilated the surrounding spiritual power, compressed and condensed. In just a short period of less than 5 months, the seventh metal spirit power of Yang Chen's whole body was converted into seventh metal true essence. However, after the conversion, the seventh metal spirit power was almost reduced by 90%. The quality of the previous seventh metal spirit power and seventh metal true essence was simply incomparable. In order to balance, other spiritual powers were also quickly converted and supplemented. Coupled with the seventh metal true essence from the jade bottle, the seventh metal spirit power in Yang Chen's body grew rapidly. The seventh metal true essence in the jade bottle was quickly exhausted. Fortunately, the amount collected by Knife Scar was enough to complete the conversion of Yang Chen's spiritual power. Next was the crazy supplement of the spiritual power of the earth vein, and then it was absorbed and transformed, slowly restoring the original seventh metal spirit power of Yang Chun. The improvement of the quality of the spiritual power brought about a slow conversion and replenishment speed. During the period of replenishment, Yang Chen's sea of consciousness finally changed again. In the middle of the 5th earth layer, there was a large piece of golden debris, evenly distributed in the fifth earth layer. Those so-called debris were the seventh metal. This distribution just matched the pattern of the 5 elements of the earth, giving birth to the metal. As soon as this change occurred, the spiritual power in Yang Chen's body also began to change wildly. The fifth earth true essence had been cultivated for many days, and now it began to frantically improve the seventh metal spirit power. The scope of the sea of consciousness began to expand again. It was originally only the size of 100 acres, but this time it expanded to 150 acres. His spiritual awareness soared sharply, directly breaking through the peak of the early Yuanying stage and entering the middle Yuanying stage. At this point, Yang Chen's spiritual awareness was released. It could be said that the entire fierce sun courtyard within a 10-mile radius, there was nothing that could hide from Yang Chen. Even the body of the old tree demon had always been hidden, but under the exploration of Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, there was no place to hide. Under the pattern of the earth giving birth to the metal, the seventh metal spirit power soared sharply. The fifth earth true secret art plus the seventh metal true secret art, the fifth earth true essence plus the seventh metal true essence. In just 1 month, the seventh metal spirit power directly broke through the 4th level of the foundation stage, the 5th level of the foundation stage, and stopped growing until the 6th level of the foundation stage. It became second only to the 4th fire spirit power in the 7th level of the foundation stage. This was a situation that Yang Chen had not encountered even if he had cultivated the 5th earth true secret art. It seemed that even if the 5 elements were mutually reinforcing and mutually restraining, it also needed equal spiritual power to be able to exert its greatest power. The Great Yin in Yang 5 elements secret art has been completed by 2 kinds, and there were still 8 kinds of spiritual power left. However, these 2 kinds of spiritual power have burst out of Yang Chen's energy. Yang Chen has now begun to look forward to how powerful the Great Yin and Yang 5 elements secret art will be after completion. Suddenly feeling the cultivation base bursting, Yang Chen suddenly regretted it. If there was a flying sword of the 7th metal attribute at this moment, or a flying sword of the 5th earth attribute, refining it with the most original 7th metal true essence and 5th earth true essence, how comfortable would it be? Unfortunately, the flying sword selected by Yang Chen for the 2 sword souls, a bright ray sword was the 3rd fire, and a blood phantom vine sword was the 2nd wood. Although there was also a Punlai divine wood that had been booked for the 1st wood flying sword, there was no 7th metal and 5th earth attribute. Not only that, there was not even a magic weapon of the metal and earth attributes on the table, which made Yang Chen a little itchy, but unable to vent. Wait! Yang Chen suddenly thought of something. It seemed to be of the metal attribute. The bottle cap of the pure bottle medicine garden, the dome sword array, was of the metal attribute. It could be used to try it. In the dome hall, Wan Xian and her apprentices were still cultivating without sleep. For more than 10 years of alchemy, Yang Chen did not take care of them. Fortunately, the medicine garden has been full of spiritual power recently, so there was no need to worry about accidents. Even so, Yang Chen felt that something was wrong. He carefully moved them into the medicine garden, and then each of the 5 Jidan stage masters took a profound yang fruit on time. As for the Jidan stage master Wan Xian, now that there are so many 10,000 year spirit medicines in the medicine garden, some 1,000 years medicinal materials are not so important. The 1,000-year ginseng was also taken every other month. Chapter 4:18. Yang Chen tried many methods, but the active consciousness of Wan Xian and her apprentices has been completely destroyed by Yang Chen's bloody river. Although they have memories and can do things according to Yang Chen's instructions, they will not take the initiative to do it. Just like so many years of sleepless practice, just because of Yang Chen's instructions, so they spared no effort to cultivate. For such a long time, their cultivation base has actually grown. It seems to be more effective than when they were conscious. However, for the situation of Wan Xian and her apprentices, Yang Chen did not have the slightest sympathy and soft-hearted. They don't know how many people's lives have been destroyed by that memory search, and they only have themselves to blame for this end. In the soaring dome hall, there was nothing else except for the 49 flying swords hanging high in the dome that were still hovering. Yang Chun held the bottle cap in his hand, first prepared a large number of profound yang fruits, and then placed the black jade praying mat on the spiritual vein. After all the preparations were done, he began to explore the bottle cap with his mind. Yang Chun couldn't help but be cautious. The refining of the medicine garden at the time took a lot of effort. This time there were 49 advanced flying swords in the bottle cap. Although Yang Chen's cultivation base has been greatly improved, and his spiritual awareness has soared to the middle yuanying stage, but he still had to be careful. The spiritual awareness imprint was already in the bottle cap. Yang Chun easily immersed his own spiritual awareness into the dome cap. After exploring it, the enlarged dome hall appeared out of thin air in his sea of consciousness. It must be said that the people in the medicinal refining garden were masters. Although the materials used were still somewhat lacking, the refining technique was very proficient and the whole structure was perfect. What Yang Chun needed to do was to refine it with the Heavenly Spirit Treasure refining secret art. The last time the bottle was only refined with the first layer of the Heavenly Spirit Treasure refining secret art. He didn't know if the dome could have a higher level of refining. The seventh metal spirit power began to slowly enter the dome according to the requirements of the Heavenly Spirit Treasure refining secret art, refining the dome hall. He didn't know if it was because of the improvement in his cultivation base, or perhaps it was because of the great increase in his spiritual awareness. This time, the refining of the first layer of the Heavenly Spirit Treasure refining secret art was not too difficult. In just half a month, Yang Chun completed the refining of the first layer. Striking while the iron was hot, Yang Chun felt that he still had some energy left, so he immediately began to refine the second layer. At the second level, the difficulty increased. The grade of the medicine garden itself was very high. It was simply used by yuanying stage master. With the strength of Yang Chen's foundation stage, the difficulty of refining it was really a bit high. However, with the support of sufficient and continuous spiritual power, coupled with Yang Chen's technique becoming more and more skillful, after spending 3 difficult months, Yang Chen finally completed the second refining of the Heavenly Spirit Treasure refining secret art. The spiritual power of the seventh metal true essence had penetrated deep into the dome. The original golden hall, from the inside to the outside, had some dark golden stars, and the spiritual power seemed to be more pure. The sword formation composed of 49 flying sword. Yang Chun has not yet been able to refine it, but the changes in the hall are enough to make Yang Chun happy. The structure was more stable, the spiritual power was more pure, and the protective ability could be seen with the naked eye. Since the Heavenly Spirit Treasure refining secret art could already be refined to the second layer, Yang Chun simply worked again, and the first layer of the Earth Fiend sacrificial formation secret art was refined again. This time, the effect was more obvious, and the first layer of the Earth Fiend array had been vaguely arranged by those dark golden stars. If someone attacked again, the defense was all made of the seventh metal true essence, which was a bit more fierce. After completion, Yang Chun habitually used the Heaven and Earth Treasure raising secret art to maintain it once. When he looked at the dome cap again, it had changed its appearance. The cap was not very eye-catching. After he refined it, the color was more heterogeneous, and it was a lot darker. But the dark golden light that would occasionally flash for a long time made the whole cap look mysterious. Looking at the dome that had been refined by himself and not just marked with the spiritual awareness, Yang Chun suddenly looked forward to it. If someone could rush in and try the power, how good it would be. Unfortunately, if he could be attacked in the fierce sun courtyard, it would simply be a joke. The dome hall has completed the refining of the Heavenly Spirit second layer and the Earth Fiend first layer. Yang Chun simply took out the medicine garden and began to refine the Heavenly Spirit second layer and the Earth Fiend first layer. This time, Yang Chun used the spirit power of the fifth earth. The fifth earth layer in the medicine garden was deeper. This most original soil was simply the best foundation for the cultivation of all the elixirs. Just this sacrificial refining made all the medicinal herbs and it increased their age by dozens of years. Those newly transplanted elixirs were extremely firmly rooted, and there was no risk of death due to carelessness in the transplanting process. After doing all this, pinching his fingers, it was already more than 7 months. This retreat, together with the cultivation of the 7th metal true secret art, plus the medicine refining garden and the dome, it took more than a year. Xiao Tian slept for a longer time this time, but after waking up, the shape had changed slightly. The body was a lot longer, but it was only a little longer. It had not become a dragon body. Presumably, it had not fully stimulated the blood of Yazi. Sure enough, as Yang Chen expected, Xiao Tian held the bright ray sword and licked it, and there had been significant changes. The most obvious point was that the blade seemed to have a layer of virtual edge, which was sharper than before. This was not the kind of sharpness of the 7th metal attribute, but the pure blood of Yazi to the flying sword. Of course, Yang Chen would not favor one and discriminate against the other. The Blood Phantom Vine second wood flying sword was also placed beside Yazi. Obviously, the second wood flying sword was more advanced than the bright ray sword. Xiao Tian hugged it and never looked at the bright ray sword again. It seemed that when he needed Xiao Tian to strengthen the sword in the future, he could only put away the more advanced flying sword. After such a long retreat, Yang Chen was also a little bored. He simply called his master and went to the surrounding market to stroll around, while relaxing and to see what he would gain. Of course, the most important thing was to see how the shop of Shangwan Feng was doing. In the Qinqiu Pavilion, Gao Yu did not accompany him. Yang Chen walked all the way alone very comfortably, and he did not even have the interest of flying with the sword. However, outside the gate of the Chunyang Palace, when he arrived at the market of the Qinqiu Pavilion, Yang Chen seemed to notice that the atmosphere was a little different. It seemed that someone was deliberately observing everyone in the market. And it was not one person, but a large number of people, at least 20 or 30. These people seemed to be rogue cultivators, but their cultivation base was not weak. The worst one was also in the middle stage of the foundation stage. Of course, it was not high. That is, the peak of the foundation stage. There was not even a master of the Jidon stage. They were scattered everywhere. Some set up stalls, some bought things, but their eyes were always staring around. Chapter 419. The cultivators were used to using their spiritual consciousness to explore, so they were not very sensitive to this kind of seemingly unintentional gaze. Especially those who set up stalls. A small stall owner looking around for possible buyers was really not a big deal. However, Yang Chen just felt strange. Perhaps because his spiritual consciousness was too powerful, Yang Chen was able to capture some of the atmosphere that those people intentionally or unintentionally exuded. From the moment Yang Chen stepped into the Qinqiu Pavilion's market square, the gazes on him had not lessened. Needless to say, Yang Chen's reputation in Chunyang Palace, almost any disciple of Chunyang Palace could recognize Yang Chen at a glance. There were many disciples of Chunyang Palace coming and going, and countless people came up to greet him. After greeting his fellow disciples, Yang Chen was able to slowly stroll around the market square. However, even if he just greeted his fellow disciples, Yang Chen did not relax his attention on those people. From the moment Yang Chen entered the Qinqiu Pavilion's market square, a few people showed joy in their eyes. However, none of them behaved improperly. They all seemed to know their place and were doing what they were doing. Only a few people occasionally made eye contact with each other. No one used their spiritual consciousness, and these people were very cautious. Moreover, although they stared at Yang Chen, they did not have any malicious intent, let alone killing intent. This made Yang Chen feel a little relieved. Perhaps they had just heard of Yang Chen's name and wanted to ask for medicinal pills or simply get to know him. It was not a big deal. Originally, because of the small shop in the Fierce Sun courtyard, the disciples of the sect rarely came to the Qinqiu Pavilion to buy things. Later, Shangwan Feng opened a shop here, and the Qinqiu Pavilion gained many disciples of Chunyang Palace. Along the way, there was nothing that made Yang Chen's eyes light up. Qinqiu Pavilion was originally a market square on the outskirts of Chunyang Palace. Basically, it was mainly for the use of qi refining disciples. Foundation establishment disciples were already relatively rare, so it was very normal that there were not many good things here. It was only after the establishment of Shangguan Feng's store that it attracted many cultivators in the Foundation establishment realm. Those guys that Yang Chun felt that something was amiss would only occasionally raise their heads to glance at Yang Chun, then quickly look away and continue with their own business. Yang Chun ignored them. After strolling for a while, he walked straight into Feng's shop. The scale of the shop wasn't very big. It only covered an area of about 2 acres. It was divided into several halls, each of which served customers of different levels. Shangguan Feng had hired a few disciples from the sect to work as shop assistants. From clothing to knowledge, these shop assistants looked very professional. Of course, the shop assistants all knew Yang Chun. Immediately, someone invited Yang Chun to the back hall, where he met the head shopkeeper, Shangguan Feng. Shangguan Feng had just handed over the spirit stones and goods to a customer. Seeing Yang Chun come in, he signaled him to take a seat first. Then, after sending the customer away, Shangguan Feng came in again to talk. "Is it convenient to talk here?" Yang Chun asked casually. Shangguan Feng understood and immediately put his hand on an object. Instantly, more than 10 layers of restrictions rose instantly. "Done." Shangguan Feng nodded, indicating that Yang Chun could talk safely. Some people in the market square are very strange. Yang Chun didn't hide his impression of Shangguan Feng. He came out to relax, so he naturally had to ask when he saw someone suspicious. After all, this was Yang Chun's business. Those people were all Foundation establishment experts, so he had to be careful. After Yang Chun pointed out those people one by one, Shangguan Feng immediately understood and began to introduce the origin of those people. To Yang Chun's surprise, those people weren't new here. They were old people who had been in Qinqiu Pavilion for several years. Especially after Shanghai Feng opened his shop, they were even more attentive. "Maybe I'm overthinking." Yang Chun shook his head. Those old people who had been here for several years and took care of a lot of business should be fine. It seemed that he was being too careful. In the past few years, the business was all managed by Shangguan Feng. Yang Chun only knew that the profits were amazing, but he didn't care much. Shangguan Feng was immersed in business, but his cultivation was improving step by step. Compared to the last time they met, his cultivation was more solid. He was born to be a person who was suitable for business. The market square was the place with the most rumors, and Yang Chun also consciously got some news from Shangguan Feng. What surprised Yang Chun was that the things between Yang Chun and Shi Shanshan had been spread by many people. Many young talents seemed to be dissatisfied with Shi Shanshan becoming Yang Chun's Dao companion, and they were looking for trouble with Yang Chun. Yang Chun was mentally prepared when the Green Jade Immortal Island revealed this matter. He would definitely become the target of public criticism. There was no way around it. Shi Shanshan was so good that people couldn't help but be jealous. Even if Yang Chun was now an alchemy master with unlimited potential, few young cultivators would feel that they were inferior to others. Knowing this, but hearing from the mouth of Shangguan Feng that there were many famous talents who said so, Yang Chun could only smile bitterly. Fortunately, Sun Qingxue hasn't said anything about her. Otherwise, it was estimated that Yang Chun would be attacked by people except in the Chunyang Palace in the future. Everything in the business was normal, and there was nothing that Yang Chun was interested in here, but after lingering in the Thousand Autumn Pavilion for a long time, Yang Chun planned to go back. Yang Chun decided to make a plan for himself after going back, at least to collect the materials of several kinds of flying sword, and then consider collecting the known true essence from everywhere, and with various spirit power, he would perfect the Great Een and Yang 5-element secret art. Cultivation must be improved, but now there are a lot of 10,000 years elixirs, so he didn't have to worry about it for the time being, as long as he followed the prescribed order. Moreover, Yang Chun was not very keen on this kind of external force to improve his cultivation base. This kind of improvement was always not as solid as his own cultivation. On the way back, Yang Chun still wanted to feel the taste of walking back. Although it was a few hundred miles away, it would take more than 10 days to walk slowly, but it could make Yang Chan relax appropriately so that he wouldn't have to practice every day. He didn't know if he was influenced by Shi Shan Shan. Yang Chen always wanted to drink some tea recently, but he always felt that it was not enough. It was better to drink wine to make people feel more comfortable. Unfortunately, now Yang Chen didn't have any top-grade wine in his hands. It seemed that he had to make some good wine by himself. On the third evening of Yang Chen's return to Chunyang Palace, Yang Chen was cooking tea with a profound spirit furnace in a sheltered place when he suddenly felt that the surrounding atmosphere was a little abnormal. A murderous aura began to slowly diffuse around, faintly targeting Yang Chen. "Which friend is coming? Please show yourself." Yang Chen didn't feel a strong killing intent, so he just raised his teacup and invited in that direction. Chapter 420. I just want to see the future alchemist of the Pure Yang Palace. What kind of ability can get the favor of Fairy Shi? With a clear voice, a figure slowly came out of the woods over there. A few days ago, he heard from Shanghai Feng that many young cultivators were dissatisfied with him in the marketplace, and now one came out immediately. He was handsome and had a jade-like appearance. At first glance, one could tell that he was an elegant young master. He fanned himself with a folding fan in his hand, but his eyes were staring coldly at Yang Chen. That faintly discernible killing intent came from his eyes. "There's no need for fellow Taoists to pay attention to me." Yang Chen smiled slightly. He was not interested in this kind of guy who was jealous for no reason, but he still did not forget his etiquette. He picked up the teacup and asked, "Would you like a cup?" Don't try to get close to me." The other side closed his folding fan, and his voice was still cold as he said, "Take out your flying sword. Let's compete and see who wins and who loses. Let's see who is more qualified to be Fairy Shi's Taoist companion." "I admit defeat." Yang Chen directly admitted defeat without thinking. He was a reincarnated person, a dignified, almighty immortal. It was shameful enough to be jealous of a junior who seemed to be only in the foundation establishment stage. What's more, Yang Chen had always directly admitted defeat in this kind of meaningless challenge. "I admit defeat when it comes to learning from each other." This was Yang Chen's philosophy of life. The young talent, who was originally ready to fight, was shocked by Yang Chen's words. He had just put away his folding fan and confidently raised his flying sword. But the other side did not even make a move and directly admitted defeat. How could he, who was extremely arrogant, be willing to accept this? However, the other side had already admitted defeat. How could he continue to pester and disregard his image? How can you admit defeat? After a moment of sluggishness, the young talent directly shouted at Yang Chen. "How can the person that Fairy Shi likes be afraid before the battle? Are you worthy of Fairy Shi's favor? If you want him to fight, you have to fight to the death." A sudden voice suddenly interrupted. "Who is it?" The young prodigy was shocked. When did another person suddenly appear here? He actually didn't know about it at all. One could only imagine the level of this person's cultivation. "Who?" A golden seal the size of an 8-seater table abruptly smashed down from the sky with the sound of an intense wind. It smashed right into the young man's head. He had long been ready to spar with Yang Chen. The flying sword had always been in his hand. Without thinking, the handsome young man directly raised his flying sword and faced the golden seal in the air. To everyone's surprise, when the flying sword collided with the golden seal, it seemed to have no effect at all and was directly smashed down. However, the momentum of the golden seal didn't slow down at all. With a bang, the young man, together with the flying sword, was smashed into the ground. He didn't even have time to scream. From the beginning to the end, Yang Chen held the teacup and drank slowly. His fingers didn't even tremble. It was as if the appearance of this expert was a matter of course, and he did not find it strange at all. The golden seal on the ground became smaller and flew into the sky. Yang Chen was still indifferently drinking his tea and didn't even raise his head. "Good courage." A figure appeared in the sky on a flying sword. He slowly descended and landed 10 feet away from Yang Chen. He said in a cold voice, "No wonder you dare to challenge the auction house of Magic Flame Valley." Yang Chen had already seen the appearance of the other party. It was a cold, middle-aged man with a calm, murderous aura in his eyes. However, it was very well hidden and almost didn't leak out. When the other party challenged the auction house of Magic Flame Valley, Yang Chen knew that this was the matter of the young master and the manager he had killed. Although there were not many people in the 100,000 Mountains who knew Yang Chen, and it was unlikely that they would connect him with that matter, but after decades of continuous investigation, they finally found Yang Chen. In this regard, Yang Chen was not surprised. When he was in 100,000 Mountains, he understood that the background of the auction house was amazing, but Yang Chen did not carefully check who it was. His master was seriously injured. How could Yang Chen, who was angry, let go of the young master and the manager of the auction house? Even if the background was big, he would take their heads. Now that the other party came to the door, it was definitely not to negotiate. Yang Chen looked at the guy who appeared. It was actually a Yuanying stage master. It seemed that in order to block Yang Chen, the other party also spent a lot of energy. Now thinking about it, those guys who felt something wrong in the market should be the people here. Those people were also patient. They knew that it was not good to be arrogant in the territory of Chunyang Palace. They just sent some people in the foundation stage to watch over there, just to find an opportunity for him to be alone. It seems that you have spent a lot of effort. Yang Chen finally put away the teacup slowly, but he was still sitting without the slightest intention of standing up. 7 years ago, we had already found out that you did it, but we never had a chance. The cold man sneered. You have become more and more famous over the years, and my lord wants to see you. If you can satisfy my lord, the murder can be written off. The other party found out that it was Yang Chen who did it, but within the sphere of influence of Chunyang Palace, they did not dare to make trouble. This was a very normal thing. Now that the cold man actually said this, Yang Chen was a little surprised. The hatred of killing his son could be written off? Yang Chen asked himself if he was in his position, he could not do it at all. The other party obviously took a fancy to Yang Chen's talent in alchemy. It could be said that being able to say such words was enough to be evaluated as an ambitious person. Sorry, I'm not interested. Yang Chen sat on the ground and shook his head calmly. It doesn't matter. The cold man spoke equally calmly. My lord said that if you don't want to go, it's the same with your head. My head is very busy. I'm afraid I won't have a chance. Yang Chen stared at the other party and still said unhurriedly, It's not up to you. The cold man smiled coldly. If you expect someone in Chunyang Palace to save you, then you don't have to hope. Within a radius of 300 miles, there is no living person. I'll give you another chance. My lord is thirsty for talents. If you go, there will definitely be benefits for you. A Yuanying stage master is also such a wishy-washy person. Yang Chen scolded impatiently. Courting death. The cold man no longer talked nonsense and coldly dropped 2 words. With a move of his mind, the golden seal that had disappeared appeared in the air again. With the remaining power falling rapidly, it smashed towards Yang Chen. Yang Chen sat motionless, but when the golden seal was still a few feet away from Yang Chen, it suddenly hit a golden light and made a loud bang. Chapter 4:21. In the surprised eyes of the cold man, a dome hall shining with golden light appeared out of thin air, covering Yang Chen's whole body. The huge golden seal smashed directly into the dome hall, causing sparks to fly. However, the dome hall wasn't damaged in the slightest. Relying on a protective magic weapon, you dare to be so arrogant? After discovering Yang Chen's reliance, the cold man sneered. His figure flew up and circled a few laps around the dome hall. Under the control of the cold man, the golden seal kept flying up and then slammed down heavily. But no matter how he hit, the dome hall seemed to be made of fine steel. It was motionless, and even a mark was not left. On the contrary, after a few consecutive wild smashes, there were traces of scratches on the golden seal. After discovering this, the cold man suddenly became distressed. His golden seal took a lot of time to refine. If it was damaged like this, it would not be worth the loss. Yang Chen drilled into such a tortoise shell, and the cold man could not find any suitable means to deal with Yang Chen for a while, and he had some headaches. He was a master of the Yuanying stage, but he couldn't do anything to a foundation stage junior who had a magic weapon to protect himself. How could he endure this? The cold man in the 100,000 mountains was also a person of his word. Was he going to fall on this Meiqing mountain? Like a mouse pulling a tortoise, if there was no place to start, the cold man could only retreat. Yang Chun dared to be so sure that he must have informed the masters of Chunyang Palace. If he couldn't deal with Yang Chun in a short time, there was no other way but to withdraw, acting wildly in a sect with a master of the Deshang stage. Even if this master of the Deshang stage did not seem to have a good cultivation base, the Deshang stage was the Deshang stage, and it was not something that a Yuanying stage master could compete with. In particular, there were several Yuanying stage masters in Chunyang Palace. He was alone. It was impossible to be the opponent of the entire Chunyang Palace. Just as the cold-looking man was hesitating whether he should leave or not, he was pleasantly surprised to find a fatal flaw in the domed hall. The defensive capabilities of the main hall were sufficient, but the 4 doors of the main hall were all open, so one could enter at any time. No matter how powerful you are, you still have this fatal flaw. It seems that if God wants you to die, no one can stop you. The cold man laughed loudly. After shouting a few words, he directly rushed into the hall. Sigh. Yang Chun was sitting on the ground in the center of the hall. He seemed to be controlling the defenses of the entire hall with his mind. Seeing the cold man rushing in, Yang Chun shook his head regretfully and let out a long sigh. There's a path to heaven, but you didn't take it. Instead, you barged into hell. You're courting death. You can't blame others. Let's see how long you can be so stubborn. The cold-looking man sneered. Without stopping, he pounced on Yang Chun. His lord's order was to capture him alive as much as possible. If he couldn't, then he would bring his head to see him. Now that Yang Chun was sitting over there, it was a good opportunity to capture him alive. Every injustice has its perpetrator. Every debt has its debtor. Fellow Taoist, rest in peace. Yang Chun looked at the figure of the other party rushing out. A sarcastic smile flashed on his face, and he casually said his killing mantra. With the words of Yang Chun, the cold man also suddenly noticed that something was wrong. The golden seal that had been retracted instantly appeared in front of him, like a huge shield blocking in front of him. Clang, a series of intensive collisions like pear blossoms in a rainstorm. On the golden seal of the cold man, there were countless gaps. At the same time, several flying swords also appeared behind the man, forcing the man to release a flying sword and block the attack of the flying sword behind him with great difficulty. 7 steps enchanting killing array. Fellow Taoist, if you can break this array, I will go with you. Yang Chun sat leisurely in the center of the hall, looking at the cold man who was frantically resisting the pervasive flying sword attack, and said loudly, however, if fellow Taoist can't break this array, then this day next year will be the anniversary of fellow Taoist's death. 49 flying swords, all of which were high-quality flying swords used by Yuanying stage masters. Under the complete sword array, the power was even more violent. The man trapped in the array, how could he still listen to Yang Chun's mocking voice? All the protective magic weapons were used together, and only then did he block the attack of the sword array. But even so, he was already at a loss. Now the man regretted it. How could he be blinded by lard and believe that the door left behind by such a powerful protective magic weapon was flawed? That was not a flaw. It was clearly a fatal trap. If he had known this earlier, he would have escaped in time. How could he be so embarrassed? Yang Chun was also secretly admiring. To be honest, the cold man was the one who persisted the longest under the 7 steps enchanting killing sword array in the Dome Hall. Of course, this was related to his cultivation base. In the past, the trap guys were at most a Jiadan stage master. The sword array, composed of 49 Yuanying stage flying swords, could not withstand an attack at all. They would die immediately. Now this guy was in the Yuanying stage, and he seemed to be in the late Yuanying stage. He was able to block this series of attacks. However, that was all. The protective magic treasures had all appeared, but including the huge golden seal, they were all riddled with scars. Various magic treasures were covered with various kinds of scars, and a few low-grade magic treasures were already on the verge of collapse. Just as Yang Chun sighed, a flying sword and an armor were shattered into pieces with a bang. Without 2 magic weapons to protect his body, the man was even more difficult to support himself. A moment of carelessness, a flying sword immediately found a gap and directly penetrated his arm. The severe pain made the man scream. With a slight distraction, the golden seal was pierced by a series of flying swords and directly turned into a huge sieve full of holes. This golden seal was his beloved magic weapon, and it had even reached the realm of life source magic weapon. At this moment, most of it was suddenly destroyed by the flying sword, and the man's spiritual awareness was immediately injured. Under this situation, the man could no longer turn the tide. He only persisted for less than 5 breaths, and the golden seal was broken into pieces by a dozen sword lights. There was no magic weapon around the man that could be as powerful as the golden seal. Despicable. The cold man knew that his time was up. He tried his best to resist a few times and shouted at Yang Chun, "It's not as good as a master in the late Yuanying stage to deal with me, a junior in the foundation stage." Despicable. Yang Chun sneered. "Rest in peace, senior." Chapter 422. In the desperate eyes of the cold man, the 49 flying swords were like a pack of wolves smelling the smell of blood, and they swarmed up. Before the cold man's body landed, it had been turned into dozens of pieces and fell to the ground. It seems that it is necessary to go to the 100,000 mountains again and solve this trouble. Yang Chun looked at the corpses on the ground and directly brought the 5 Jiedon women who were cultivating in the medicine garden to the hall. With a thought, they began to clean up the mess and collect the spoils of war. Yang Chun himself began to consider the consequences of this matter. Since the other party came to the door and wanted to work for Yang Chun, they must have taken a fancy to Yang Chun's potential in alchemy. But now that Yang Chun killed this master of the late Yuanying stage, it was estimated that there was no room for reconciliation. Under the madness of the other party, they would definitely retaliate violently against Yang Chun and the people around Yang Chun. For Yang Chun himself, Yang Chun was not afraid, but Yang Chun was afraid of what would happen to Gao Yu. The last time Gao Yu was injured in the 100,000 mountains, if she was hurt again because of this matter, Yang Chun would never forgive himself. For now, the only thing he could do was to find them before the other party retaliated on a large scale. Anyway, those guys had hurt Gao Yu, and they were not good things. At that time, Yang Chun was worried about Gao Yu's injury and did not eliminate the roots. Now it was time to end this matter. Other things could be postponed, but not this matter. Yang Chun immediately began to think about how to deal with these guys. Of course, the most important thing was to let the sect know about this and take precautions. This master of the late Yuanying stage did not have many good things on him. That golden seal must have been a quasi-life source magic weapon that had been immersed for many years. It was not a life source magic weapon, and it was very normal that its power could not be compared with the sword formation. However, the refining materials of the golden seal were very rare. The only pity was that this Yuanying stage master's refining level was really not very good. He could bully those young talents in the foundation stage, but it was still not enough for a real high-level magic weapon. Of course, the destroyed golden seal was confiscated, and all kinds of magic weapons and chinquin bags on his body were not left at all. Even the flesh and blood of the corpse were not wasted. The plant of the blood demon vine was still very weak. The flesh and blood of the master was just right to make up for it. Although the effect was not very strong, it was better than nothing. People of the 100,000 mountains? The master of the palace patiently listened to Yang Chun's words and pondered. After a while, he raised his head and said, "Gather the elders. Tell them the whole story in detail. This time, the Pyongyang palace may be coveted by a big force, and it was likely to be a bloody battle. The other party could firmly occupy the position of the overlord in the Yuanying Forever. All the elders were present, except for Wang Yong, who was in seclusion refining his natal flying sword. In sect of sword sect of the sect of the palace of a sect. In, and of elders of the elders of palace. In addition to the elders, several hall masters and hall masters were also summoned. It was related to the safety of the Chunyang Palace, of course. It must be comprehensive. Yang Chun, You tell the ins and outs of the matter in detail. When the master of the palace saw that everyone was here, he did not delay much time and directly ordered Yang Chun. Yes, palace master. Yang Chun bowed and promised. After greeting the elders, he began to tell the whole story. He heard that Yang Chun had just reached the foundation stage 25 years ago. He took the two masters of the Hall of Eccentrics, Shi Kuei and Xie Sha, to raise the Howie Villa of the 100,000 Mountains, and also took over the auction house of the Magic Flame Valley and killed the person in charge and a young master. Even if the elders and the hall masters have been tempered by many major events recently, after listening to these experiences of Yang Chun, everyone still couldn't suppress their shock. One by one, they were stunned and looked at Yang Chun. Only Guei Shanyu, the old tree demon of the Hall of Eccentrics, was not surprised at all. This was what he had experienced. There was nothing to make a fuss about. The foundation stage, he killed the four-peak Yuanying stage masters of Howie Villa and also abducted a master of the Deshang stage, Guei Shanyu, who was only in the early foundation stage. If he reached the Jidan stage and the Yuanying stage, what could he do? Shock was shock, but the things that Yang Chun said still had to be taken seriously. If the other party really failed to retaliate against Yang Chun and change to target the disciples of the Chunyang Palace, then the loss would outweigh the gain. Those guys in 100,000 Mountains were not a good master to provoke. Everyone pondered. No one spoke. They were considering and weighing. Hall, Master Meng Xian of the Law Enforcement Hall looked at it and was the first to ask, "Are you sure you killed a master of the late Yuanying stage? What magic weapon did he use?" Meng Xian couldn't help but doubt it. Even if Yang Chun was very outstanding now, he was only in the late foundation stage, and he had just entered the late foundation stage. Even if this cultivation speed was already beyond the reach of many people, to say that Yang Chun killed a master of the late Yuanying stage by himself, Meng Xian still did not believe it. Maybe you were panicking, so you mistook the opponent's cultivation base. It was Liang Xiaoming, the hall master of the Bright Moon Palace, who answered. During the period of reflection, Liang Xiaoming had already refined the flying sword that he planned to cultivate as his life's source magic weapon. His cultivation base seemed to be stronger than before. Although he spoke slowly, it was full of doubts about Yang Chun. Yang Chun did not answer, and directly took out the golden seal that was full of holes and handed it to Meng Xian. Meng Xian took the golden seal and was immediately taken aback. He looked up at Yang Chun with some surprise, and then looked down at the broken golden seal. This golden seal was not something that could be refined by ordinary people, and not everyone could use it. This was different from the sword array in Yang Chen's dome hall. As long as the spiritual power of the medicine garden was sufficient, the sword array could be used all the time. This golden seal must be controlled by a master. Without the cultivation base of the Yuanying stage, it was impossible to drive it. After Meng Xian read it, he handed it to the head of the palace. After everyone looked at it one by one, their eyes changed a little. To be able to cut the golden seal into this state, how powerful was the flying sword on Yang Chen's body? This was the first time that Yang Chun showed part of his own strength in front of the elders and hall masters. Everyone looked at Yang Chun with a shocked look. Of course, there was another kind of look. The material of this golden seal, everyone had already seen it, was by no means an ordinary product. The golden seal was broken. That was because the level of refining was too poor, but the material was extremely precious. If this golden seal was given to someone, it was almost guaranteed that there would be a superb flying sword. Unfortunately, this golden seal was Yang Chen's trophy. Chapter 423. Many years ago, Chunyang Palace had a big discussion about the ownership of the disciples' gains. At that time, the conclusion was that the disciples' private items belonged to the disciples. This golden seal was Yang Chen's trophy, so it naturally belonged to Yang Chun. Even if others wanted to take it, it was impossible. The only way was to find another way to exchange or buy it from Yang Chen's hands. Compared with taking it by force, the latter two methods were simpler. After all, everyone in the sect knew that Yang Chun held a large number of resource industries in his hands. It was estimated that Yang Chen's spiritual root of the fire attribute would not care about a piece of metal refining material. This was a story for later. Now, the top management of the sect was going to discuss the Shirwan Mountains. Soon, everyone turned their attention from Yang Chen's killing of the Yuanying masters and began to discuss countermeasures. If the people of the Shirwan Mountains dare to openly declare war on Chunyang Palace, then we will fight them to the death. Lin Yinfeng was the first to speak, and it could be regarded as a statement. What's more, they attacked the disciples of our sect first, and the reason is not on their side. The disciples of our Chunyang Palace will not be bullied by outsiders at will. Although the people of Chunyang Palace were sometimes not very domineering, when it came to this kind of thing, most people's first thought was to protect the interests of the disciples of the sect. Even Elder Lin Yinfeng, who had always disliked Yang Chun, was the same. It was their own fight, but outsiders could not bully the people of the sect. This is the truth. The people of the Shirwan Mountains first broke the rules of the auction house and attacked the disciples of our sect. Now they attack the disciples of our sect in Meiqing Mountain. Do they think that there is no one in our Chunyang Palace? Immediately, an elder said in the same indignant tone, "Right now, we still can't be sure what actions the 100,000 mountain range will take. If the entire sect is facing a formidable enemy, we will become a laughingstock for no reason." Another elder said, "Why don't we do anything for now and see what the other party's arrangement is like? Since Shirwan Mountain broke the rules, there will naturally be others to settle the score. In a short time, they will definitely not dare to attack Chunyang Palace on a large scale." This time, it was Su Qingxin, an elder of the Foreign Affairs Hall whom Yang Chan was familiar with. Meiqing Mountain is not Shirwan Mountain. Other sect won't tolerate them coming to our territory to fight. There's no need to panic. They broke the rules and attacked our sect's disciples first, so we naturally can't let them off so easily. However, since Yang Chun has already killed the other party's leader and young master, then let's forget about this matter. Liang Xiaoming immediately said, "But it's hard to say if they will send people to kill Yang Chun again." "What do you mean?" The master of the medicine hall was promoted to the Yuanying realm, and his confidence was greatly boosted. When he heard this, he immediately frowned. If he just wants to avenge his son and doesn't involve other people in the sect, how can we intervene? Liang Xiaoming looked up at Yang Chun, the only person standing here, and then turned to Zhu Chuntao and said, "If he insists that it's a personal grievance, it's not good for our sect to intervene. He attacked our sect's disciples first. If he wants two people's lives to make up for it, how can it be so easy?" Zhu Chuntao snorted coldly. "This time, he sneaked into my Meiqing Mountain again. Is our Chunyang Palace a place where no one can come and go as he pleases? Of course, we can't let go of the people of Shirwan Mountain. As long as the opportunity is right, we will naturally teach them a lesson." Liang Xiaoming said righteously, and then turned his eyes to Yang Chun. "But it's not the sect's intention to make enemies with Shirwan Mountain, right? Could it be that our Chunyang Palace's disciples are allowed to be bullied and plotted against by others?" Yang Chun was furious, but before Yang Chun could speak, Zhu Chuntao had already opened his mouth. "What are you talking about?" In the end, Gao Yu was targeted because she collected the materials for refining the flying sword for her disciples. Later, it was Yang Chun who provoked these troubles. Liang Xiaoming, of course, was targeting Yang Chun. He sneered and said, "The private affairs of their master and disciple, the trouble they got involved with our sect. Even if our sect comes forward to take care of it, the culprit can't be easily let go, and the sect must punish him. Otherwise, everyone will go out and make trouble. Where are the rules of our sect?" The sect helped Yang Chun and Gao Yu to bear the pressure from the outside, but they could not let go of the internal pressure easily. This was what Liang Xiaoming meant. "Uncle Liang, Master is looking for the materials for refining the flying sword. It is the order of the palace master." Yang Chun stood on the opposite side and said, "The palace master personally rewarded a flying sword. Did Uncle Liang forget? To reward a foundation establishment disciple with a flying sword, do you have to use such high-level materials?" Liang Xiaoming's face did not change, and he slowly said, "The palace master did not say that he would reward such a high-level flying sword, right? Let Uncle Liang know." A faint smile appeared on Yang Chen's face, and he looked directly at Liang Xiaoming and asked, "The palace master did not say that an advanced flying sword can't be rewarded." This was something that no one could refute. The palace master did say that he would reward Yang Chun with a flying sword, but in everyone's mind, they thought it was just an ordinary flying sword, as long as it was of the fire attribute. They did not expect that Gao Yu would work so hard for Yang Chen's flying sword. Liang Xiaoming could no longer go on. If he continued to pursue this issue, he would directly offend the head of the palace. In the past, the palace master was weak. Lin Yunfeng and several elders were on good terms, and they could almost influence the decisions of the palace master. But now, Wang Yongqiang appeared, and his cultivation base surpassed everyone. Then came Gue Shanyu, who was in the Deshang stage. In addition to the series of actions of Yang Chun, the strength of the Chunyang Palace had greatly increased, and the prestige of the palace master was rising day by day. Even Lin Yunfeng did not dare to contradict him, let alone Liang Xiaoba. There is no need to discuss this matter again. The 100,000 mountains started first, the fault is on the other side. Sure enough, the head of the palace just glanced at Liang Xiaoming lightly and said this sentence, "It is the same for you. No matter who is attacked, because of what they do, we will go to buy things in a well-behaved manner. If they make a move, then they are wrong." Liang Xiaoming naturally couldn't say anything more, but he stared at Yang Chun fiercely. The more famous Yang Chen's deeds were in these years, the more Liang Xiaoming hated him, and even couldn't help but want to teach him a lesson himself. However, today he found that Yang Chun had killed a late Yuanying stage master alone, which made him a lot of fear. "Yang Chun, what is your way to deal with it?" The palace master made a conclusion and immediately turned to Yang Chun and asked, "This disciple wants to know, if the behind-the-scenes forces of the 100,000 mountains fall, can my sect take over and control the 100,000 mountains?" Yang Chun did not speak, but when he spoke, everyone was shocked.